had to cut that early. They need a 10-second countdown. I was like, what's it? All this time. Lose every train thought in my head. So thank you for everybody that's watching. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. This is the 12 Puzzles podcast. We got 2 new people on tonight. We got Douglas in New York, Christopher's in Miami, and Justin, where you at?
I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Virginia. So we're all on the East Coast. So we're in December, and New Orleans is the puzzle. Who wants to start? Anybody. Does everybody do the New Orleans puzzle?
New Orleans is my passive.
A little bit, yeah.
It's your what?
Yeah, I've done a little bit.
It's my passive one. It's not my primary, but
which one's your primary?
Charleston.
Charleston. Oh yeah, Charleston's so much fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we should save that.
That's just one nut kicker after another. That's all Charleston is. I still think I'm missing something after God, so much disappointment going to Charleston. That's one of them ones where you get such good clues and you're just like, yeah, I got it this time. And nothing. Last 2 times I've driven there, messed around, and driven all the way back. And what is it, like 4 hours?
Yeah, it's about 3
hours.
4.
Yeah, I mean it's a good easy drive on 95 until you get off exit 33 and you got to make the
Highway 17 traffic.
Yeah, 17.
Yep.
Through that deer-laden, dangerous, dark road.
It's better than it used to be.
I thought I was there. I actually saw the guy pulled over with a gun. And I said, I passed deer, and I look at the guy. He's just waiting for me to go by so he can start shooting deer. I was like, oh, man. I was like, so who's got what?
New Orleans.
Hey, let's address the city park. All those rumors earlier, like in the last month, that they had found it in City Park. I don't really believe that.
Yeah,
you guys got City
Park?
No, I looked there.
I don't put any stock in rumors that purport to find it and then refuse to show it.
Yeah, they said, oh, we're going to get it. And I think someone took that the wrong way. Okay. That's what someone said. They said, oh, they didn't say they got it. They said, we're going to get it. I guess someone thought they got it or had it.
Mission every single time you go to a park, I'm going to get it. I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to go to the park and not want to get it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to. Byron's still screwing from us. Or screwing with us from the grave. It's like, yep, you thought you had it. It's so many people have done that. It's got to the point where it's like, yeah, no one believes it anymore.
Right.
Somebody needs to come up with a different message.
We're supposed to be on 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I don't even know where that.
People are like,
and if anybody found it. Yeah. I mean, some of these you're gonna have to keep quiet. Like, I think you're breaking up. Can you hear us? There you go. Yeah, yeah. I think you were a little too far back.
Yeah,
But some of these are, people are going to try to keep them quiet, but some of these you're going to have to keep quiet if you find it because, like Charleston, they're probably going to come after you. So,
well, let's unpack that for a second, Eric. Why would you have to keep it quiet? I don't disagree with you, but I have a theory.
Yeah, because of the trouble it's going to cause. They're no digging. Douglas knows about that. They want it. The one in Charleston.
Yeah, they want it. If you find it in the park, Charleston wants it. So I don't know if they'd come after you. But Mike.
Let's say somebody shows up with a cask from NOLA or Charleston, and the city wants it. You don't have to say where you found it. You just say, I found the Charleston one or I found the NOLA one.
Yeah, it's true.
Litigate that. Let
Yeah,
them,
just
for them to
stay
litigate
apart.
it, they have to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
that's-
incriminate yourself. I mean, just say no. Say I found the Charleston one. It was in Savannah.
Take the OJ tact. If I found it, this is where I would have found it.
Charleston's like,
Well-
no. The number 4 is ours. No, it was in Savannah. I found it in Savannah.
Well, if you don't tell the park, the community will never believe it. You see, there's people in that think the Boston was a hoax. So
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
No, I even saw where someone said, "Man, there's 2 Boston ones." I don't even know who that
I
was.
saw-
I'm like, huh? They're like, "Yeah, there's two boxes buried in Boston." And I was like, "Okay, where did you come up with that?"
In spite of
There's one
JJP
guy-
saying there's only 12.
Boxes for it.
Well, that's like the 13th cask, because there's 13 ferries. It's like a lot of stuff is.
I believe in the 13.
But again,
I think that he alludes to 13. He says 13 like a dozen times, more than he ever says 12. I think there's a lot of information or a lot of evidence that points to a possible 13th cask. Even the manuscript had 13 casks involved before they edited that out into 12.
yeah.
You guys
There's
check the manuscripts?
if you go page 10 in the book, I was looking at that not too long ago. Because you got the Scandinavian cask makers, so they're one. Of course, the 12 immigration, so that makes 13. And then if you really get away from the map that basically lists, find page 10. The map actually lists 13 and not 12.
There's so much that's 13. That it definitely
And
makes
then it
sense.
says ones that are not
Say
shown,
why.
which are all the Chinese, so that would be 14. And
With 13. I think you got to really question. I also think that isn't mentioned is Native Americans. Like they are mentioned so much in the opening chapters that it would make you wonder if they had their own treasure, and maybe that's hidden as well. I kind of think of it as a level. The fail safe. If we were to find all the 12, before the books could sell, wouldn't it be fail safe to have a 13 level?
it could be.
13.
yeah, see the one.
Uh,
So one's pointing to Scandinavia, and 2 is Tatari, Russia, Hungary, and Poland. So okay, so the 13 they're including Scandinavia.
It's possible that they left themselves an out for a 13th one.
Maybe that was going to be the second book.
Perhaps, or maybe they just ran out of time to paint a 13th photo painting. How many casks were actually made? Have you guys ever given some thought to that?
Probably more than 12.
Definitely more than 12.
I know Joe Ellen had the one that she gave to John Michael.
So Joe Ellen had one. It became the tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JJP has one. Byron had one. And there's a fully painted one in the book. Where did the
There
fully
you go.
painted one go?
The fully painted one, I think that's the one John Michael has.
Incorrect. That's the one he got from Joe Ellen that was unpainted and later painted. The one in the book is fully painted. So you had a fully painted one in 1982.
Probably that storage unit.
Well, that was
That guy
like
bought.
that they talked about on the reenactment on Expedition Unknown, where there was a treasure box used in that too. And they're wondering where they got that one from.
That one is the tribute one.
That was the tribute one.
Prior to painting.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually found that place that actually made them because they're mentioned in the front of the book here, but they've been closed for a long time. I actually found out where they were. It looks like a alleyway of garages.
Oh yeah.
But it's didn't even have the original company name on it. It's been changed. Actually, that's what it looked like it was before it closed. Was some kind of auto garage.
At the risk of alienating many, they weren't well made after Joellen sculpted them. Her sculpt is great, but the casting of it's not well done.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see that from the close-up.
The close-ups, there's a lot of undercuts with the cask, and undercuts in pottery yield air bubbles. And unless you put an agitator to agitate those air bubbles from those undercuts, the end result is you get all these little concave remnants of where the bubbles were, and just the speed that those things were cranked out in, they just didn't come out that great. I've heard people refer to them as ugly flower pots, and they are very much ugly flower pots.
Yeah.
Hey, that could lead into the he thought they were going to find it quickly. Didn't think they were going to sit in the ground forever.
Perhaps, yeah.
And I don't believe that. Never have. I think most of the stuff that someone asked me about that other day, I think most of the stuff that Byron said in interviews was actually not true. I think it was a ploy to get people to buy the book and think it was easy, but he's like, man, they'll figure it out that it's really not. But as long as they buy the book, what would he really care? I don't believe it's a kid. Someone asked me that the other day. I said, I don't believe this is a kid's book.
Yeah.
I don't believe this book is fiction either. Fairies are, but everything else, no. It's all nonfiction. It's a historical treasure hunt book, and a lot of this stuff in this book is beyond children. Byron did say that he hoped it would get families out, and maybe the kid will eventually go to the parents and go, hey, what the hell is this? Because they haven't reached that point in school or whatever. And the parents would also get involved. But just what I've researched from the book, I'm like, this is well beyond children. The depth and complexity of this puzzle, and all these different things, and all the a kid that read a lot about historical stuff probably could pull it off. If they had the proper reference manuals, but then maybe that's what the back page, so you could fill out the solve with actually having to go and dig it up and get the gem. Maybe that was meant for kids.
Well, let's
But
start.
I hear a lot of people say their kids solved it when they say that they solved the whole thing. Me and my kid solved it 100%. So maybe it is for children.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe
I don't believe that either.
Maybe we should. Oh yeah, no.
There's two stories there. So.
Well, how old was Roble? Was like 18?
17, 18. Yeah, just before.
Young adult to adult.
But they were, they took off with. I wish I was that young. I probably would have found one by now.
Well, let me ask you this: has anybody actually solved this thing the right way? Now, what's the right way? Without assistance, following the clues.
Not fully, at least.
I believe I have the right way simply because I researched how these books are put together. Byron does give text to how you're supposed to use it, but he does. Okay, so example, actually, I talked to somebody about this. So I got that other book by John Collins Black called "There's Treasure Inside." There's a page where he tells you basically, and he just did a video the other day. He's like, which is in Byron's book as well. He tells you it ain't around no cliffs, no rivers, any places. It's within 3 miles of any place you could park. So he's giving you clues and telling you don't get killed. Like Byron says, no cemeteries, no dangerous places, no railroad tracks. But he didn't dedicate a page to telling you, hey, this is how you're supposed to do the book. What I believe is the book is, and not every puzzle is different, because today someone was asking me, like, compare New York to New Orleans. I said, okay, the puzzles work completely different. Some of these puzzles are puzzles, and then there's another puzzle and another puzzle. One puzzle's about, say, the Revolutionary War, like in New York. Early events of America, Revolutionary War, Little World War II. That's the second part of the puzzle. If you got to use every one of those events, cross connecting a bunch of stuff that basically tells you where you need to go, what park you need to go. And I've always believed that with the book. It tells you where you need to go, and you have it. Yes, if you research all the clues, you'll go, no, it ain't this place. Once everybody figured out they were public parks, you can basically go into that park. And I made a post on someone's comment today about, I don't know what park they were talking about. I said, JJP, the media, said everything you've seen in the painting is in that park or in the area where I don't really think you'd have to walk too far to actually see this stuff. Oh, actually, it was a post about White Point. And so, JJP's giving you a little something. So when you go there, like the Houston painting, you can see the Miller Theater. You see the animals that represent the zoo. You see the train tracks that represent the train. All that stuff's in the park. But a lot of this main focus stuff you need, like what has happened in Boston with the home plate, the fence in Cleveland, the Greek Garden Wall, the fence in Chicago.
Well, that's exactly to my
not
point, though.
in your face anymore.
To that point, has anybody actually solved it? The young men from Chicago, they had a picture.
Yeah.
And they still couldn't find it. You had.
They solved that, I think, a way that was one of the ways. You can either do the historical back thing of the book, which I did, because everybody thought that was Irish. That was the Irish puzzle, but really it's a Scottish puzzle because Grant was a Scotsman. He was a self-proclaimed Scotsman. But the other part of the book is the Irish and Scottish fairies traveled to the New World together because they were closely related. The book says that. So Grant, even though he's a Scotsman, he's also an Irishman. So you have the Irish and Scottish fairy both there, and they both have a gem. So the Irish fairy has a gem somewhere else, which is Houston. So I threw all that to Rob, and I said that was really the Scottish. The emerald is the Scottish prize because Grant is the Scotsman. And when you look at the Dixie Pixie and the Scottish, but he's also Irish. That's where that's confusing. If you're born in Scotland, you're also Irish. If you're born in Ireland, you're also Scottish. Your DNA is, even today, it's the most closely related DNA of any two countries out there. Scottish people have Irish blood and vice versa.
So you bring up another point. Do you need the back of the book? And I know that's a hot topic issue, but I ask you to reconcile Rob and Eric not using the back of the book. And this is without judgment, not even devil's advocate, ambivalent to either side of the camp. Do you absolutely need it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
You need it. I used to think when I ever started on was St. Augustine, and it was mostly the back of the book. And everybody started at back of the front of the book stuff. It's the whole book. You need the entire book, and it's all because of that added page thing. When they went to the publisher, they said there's not enough pages. We don't. No one knows what pages were added, and from what I've heard, is people said, well, they were added to the back of the book, so you don't need it. But plus, Byron commented something about that.
Yeah.
What the back of the book actually he's referring to? How many pages was that? Is that halfway, all the way to the end? The half? Yeah. Who knows?
Well, I think that there's certain, like, if you need an image,
more than 3/4. So.
Did you say something, Justin? No, I can't hear him. Can y'all hear him?
It would be a lot easier, Justin, if you had earbuds.
Yeah, do you got earbuds, Justin?
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything
No, I
with
don't
your
hear
audio
that.
is so.
When we do hear you, you're really low.
Really? That's wonderful. Love it.
And we can hear that.
If I can get-
Yeah, it sounds like you like 10 feet away from the mic.
Yeah, the back of the book. I mean, it's most of.
That's
Can you
better.
hear me better?
Yeah,
Yep.
A little bit. Everyone's kind of glitchy, so it's kind of.
just a little bit. Yeah, your video's twitching too.
But, yeah. Same with you guys. Yeah, I am a big back of the book guy, and I got as much from the back.
Dang.
There's a lot of information in the right direction, but it can also be valuable clues to your hunt. So you got to take both as they come, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, again, I'm not going to penalize anybody for using back of the book. I just want to see a solve that directly employs the back of the book and says, I wouldn't have found it without this. And when you connect that dot, and I'm not saying it's not there, but once we see that, I think that would legitimize, at least for me, all of the back of the book discussion. Nevertheless, I don't disregard it. Let's just see if maybe there's a pearl of wisdom in there. But I've yet to see something from the back that just resonates and says, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got
I mean, out there is the mirror to mirror page. You guys remember
Mm-hmm.
the mirror has a picture of this creature. Its tail, a location that you can find right there in Ghirardelli.
You know,
Beside
can we
it
pause for a
is
second?
a direct representation of the sound towers that are there in Aquatic Park.
Justin, is there any chance you're on Wi-Fi? And if not, could you be?
Not on,
are you on a phone or are you on a computer?
I
See,
think
see if you can go out and then come back.
you've probably got a lot of value to add, but nobody's getting it. So maybe you can connect to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we're only hearing parts of what you're saying. Yeah, I think he's got a bad connection. Yeah, 174 back of the book, the Werner von Brownie. That's the main part of St. Augustine. That's what you need for the solve. That's back of the book.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to explain it.
I appreciate that. No, that's a joke.
But it also connects to New York. It connects to San Francisco. It connects to Houston. That story runs across a whole bunch of puzzles, even though that part of the story for certain puzzles has nothing to do with finding the box. In St. Augustine, it does. In New York, it does. In Houston, it don't. And in San Francisco, it doesn't.
Hey, at the risk of losing viewership, maybe we should tie in some NOLA convo. So maybe we can ground it in. For those that always are alternate cities, is NOLA actually in NOLA? Yes or
Yeah.
no?
Oh yeah, I'll say yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is.
This is the easiest puzzle with the way it works. Even though December is 12, that's the last month of the year. It's with the time, the day and the night starts with 12, noon and midnight.
I don't think that this one. I agree with you. I don't think it's on the spectrum of difficult. I don't think it's there all the way at the top. But it does give me the feeling that this puzzle did not have as much time invested in its creation as, say, Charleston or St. Augustine.
No,
I think this was one of those
I agree with you. I agree
I
with
think
you.
it's a tail
That's
end
why I
puzzle.
call it the easy one.
It's a tail end puzzle where they threw in a couple of things in the image and the bare minimums in the verse and said people should have no problem with this.
Yeah.
And yet they do.
But with New Orleans, it kind of works like Charleston, but Charleston has extra puzzles added to it. New Orleans is easy because it's, to me, what I found, it's Ben Franklin. And to add to that, at the meetup, John Poundcard talked about how the Liberty Bell and the painting made people run to Philly. And I've heard that numerous times about New Orleans, where everybody takes the Ben Franklin that's so in your face, and they run to Philly too, and they think there's a puzzle in Philly. Even Brian Zinn thought the Cleveland cask was in Philly at one time.
Help me stay smart enough on this puzzle, or at least where you're at, Eric. When you say Ben Franklin, what takes you to Ben Franklin? Is it the playwright mask, or is there?
No, well, there's a whole bunch. Well, first, when you start with the stories, the post monster general, because the book tells you you're looking for a descendant of the fairies. So the post monster general is the fairies, and we know it's very simple. That's postmaster general. That has to do with the mail service.
Do you think that has any relation to the guy on the clock being a newsboy? And again, just trying for my own edification to tie in a back of the book.
And newsboy is exactly right, because
newsboy.
It's if you took Benjamin Franklin and said, "Give me imagery of a topic that would associate it with him," and you said a paper boy, and you said why? Because he owned the Philadelphia Gazette, and he was an author. He produced pamphlets, so the paper boy is relevant. Plus, he's dressed like a 1700s paper boy.
What park does that put you in? Not to get right to the money shot, but what park are you in?
Lafayette.
I feel like Lafayette is, I mean, again, alienating people, but indisputable, right? I mean, you have 3 people standing watch. You have the newsboy.
If you look at north in that park and you look at the sidewalk that actually goes out, which is, the imagery of the dig site is from the air. So when you see that little arm that's coming over to 3 on the clock on the painting with the circle around it, that's exactly, my theory of the clock and the compass, you lay them both over the park, you find north, and it goes over the 3 o'clock, and that's where Ben Franklin's statue is. The African fairy is present too, so that puts it in a planter, just like Cleveland. But the imagery of the painting is a bunch of stuff that you associate to Ben Franklin. You have the 3 dates. The 1790s is his death. I don't even remember what the other numbers are. I think as many times as I looked at this thing.
You know what's interesting? The first thing, when I look at these pictures, the first thing I try to find is what does not pass the smell test. What looks weird to me, and the NOLA one, the first thing that strikes me as odd is the number 4. Why?
Because you're looking for the 4. You got to find it.
Well, I can see it on the clock. What's different about this 4 than almost any other clock I've seen is it's represented by 1 V. And most of these clocks are represented by 4 number ones for the number 4, not the 1 V. And that's always struck me as odd.
Because 4 is relevant. The 4 is important. I said the 4 is relevant. That's why it's different. He wants you to notice it.
What does it mean?
That could have been put in there for distraction. That could be deception, which is a lot of the book. But here's factors. If you just take the topic of Ben Franklin, okay, so we got the zombie hand, monster hand, whatever it is. That could be part of the post-monster general, the monster hand, maybe reference. Voodoo, we know all that is part of the book. The chessboard, the Night Piece, which is Paul Morphy, who's known as the Knight of New Orleans. That's Knight. He's born and died in New Orleans, and he was considered one of the greatest. I was looking him up the other day. During his time, he was the greatest chess player, even though he died of tuberculosis, I think, at 32. How you reference chess to Paul Morphy, New Orleans? Ben Franklin is the first known American ever to play chess. He learned it in France. So chess piece, chessboard. Ben Franklin, the inventor, he created a clock, not the clock you see in the painting. He created a clock. If you look at the hands of the clock, those are lightning rods, which are invention. If you look up a lot of his lightning rods, they look just like that. What one's a boat anchor? You see a bicycle. You see owl eyes. If you look at the references to owl and Ben Franklin, it was a bunch of kids' books. These were all going on around Byron's time, including the flower. What is the flower for this thing? The daffodil, right?
I don't
Is
remember.
it?
There's actually a Franklin daffodil because there was a tree and a flower actually named after him.
Let's see.
The three dates are 1719. That is. I'm torn between his first job working for his brother and when he wrote. Actually, I made a post about that the other day. When he wrote that story about the pirate, which was about Blackbeard. 1729 is when he bought the Philadelphia Gazette, even though some people think it was 1728. And 1790 was the date Ben Franklin died. The mask, of course, is French. The mask is your clue to the French fairy. Like if you want to know, what painting is the French painting, well, there's your French mask. Whatever. They're different, but it's the same thing. Plus, the mask looking like Buddy Bolden or Louis Armstrong gives you that African connection. The moon and stars also connect to Benjamin Franklin. What else is in here? The paper boy. Okay, now on the paper boy, you notice that his one hand that's up top is a foot. So Ben Franklin, he invented what were called swim fins. These were fins you put on your actual hand to turn your hand into a foot. I mean, he also did the Franklin stove, but in the book with the currency and the coins, Franklin Mint is mentioned over and over. He actually designed the first American coin. He was the first postmaster general of the 13 colonies, and he was the first postmaster general of America. That's the post monster general. The reasoning behind this that I think Byron did it is if you're walking down that sidewalk in front of Ben Franklin statue at Lafayette Square, first question you would go, if you knew anything about Ben Franklin, you would go, hey, Ben Franklin, Philadelphia. Why the hell is he here in New Orleans? You'd have to look and figure out. And this is what I was telling this guy today. I said, imagine you know nothing about New Orleans, nothing about the secret book, and you just started and you go, Ben Franklin, hey, I live in New Orleans. I think this is the place. Why is there a statue of Ben Franklin in Lafayette Park? Who the hell is Lafayette? You'd have to look up that. And then you'll see that these two guys had a relationship. And where does this tie into? The Revolutionary War.
Well,
and so on. Ben Franklin was the ambassador to France. He went over there and talked to the king because George Washington sent him. We need help fighting the British. Here's Lafayette. Lafayette comes back with Ben Franklin. That's exactly why Franklin's statue is in Lafayette Square. But the stuff in Philly with Franklin, is it relevant? Sure, to the story of Ben Franklin. But to the puzzle, no, it's Lafayette and Franklin. That's where you need to be. Because you got to figure out why is there a statue of Ben Franklin in New Orleans? Because he really has no history there. It's that relationship between those two that makes that the spot. And everything in this painting is basically, you could connect it directly to Benjamin Franklin.
it's a lot of information to unpack.
Yeah.
Is the newsboy the same bronze figure that's on the McDonough pillar that was removed?
Yeah, I looked at that. It could be. The thing is, JJB, he never does it exactly like. There's some stuff he does, some stuff he just puts his own artistic twist on it.
Sure. Chicago.
It's like Boston when he said, "Oh, this is a witch."
Yeah.
And I was going, "Where?" Wait. Now she's a witch of the witch trials, but she's not like witch of Wizard of Oz, which is what I'd be thinking.
Well, that's your bias.
Give her a green nose or something.
Yeah,
but
sure.
to his to Palancar's credit, obviously that's what Byron told him to make, and I'm sure that's in the book somewhere. I've never done that deeper research on Boston, but you would go, ooh, because Salem is mentioned, everybody's already talked about that. So if you made that connection, you go, oh, but I'm still looking at her going, which really? Like,
Fair enough.
yeah,
So you put a lot of Ben Franklin info, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know the puzzle that well, and my question, Eric, is if the newsboy is from the McDonough statue, why put it in there if it's all about Franklin at the other side of the park?
Here's the thing. This is research I have not done. Those two statues, if that is the correct park, will be in the book. I know I did it one time, but there's been stuff that was there, stuff that's been removed, stuff that's been added.
Yeah.
So when I found out something, it could be stuff across the street.
Yeah.
Like you said, 3-stand watch, that matches up.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them.
Well, and I'm not attacking the Franklin thing at all. I have an overarching idea that might bolster your claim. I posit that Byron puts in 2 elements in every verse and picture, and I think when designing and replicating a treasure hunt, there's got to be some order to make sense of it. I'll give you an example. Chicago. Prominently mentioned in the verse is Lincoln. Agree or disagree?
Say that again?
In the verse in Chicago, prominently mentioned is Lincoln. Over L's shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Lincoln by just using the L.
Yeah. But, I mean, and Lincoln is a big statue. If you solve that, you're at Lincoln. Lincoln's a big statue. From Lincoln, if you're looking into the park, you go down and to the left, and you're at the dig spot.
Yeah.
Fair. Let's keep that framework.
When you see the fence, you're there.
Yeah. Well, that fence post is
that one designed that way.
Yeah, that fence post is in multiple parts along that left side of Lincoln. But you get down and to the left, you're there. Now, I mentioned that. I want you to remember the down and to the left. Because if you go down to Cleveland, and in the verse it says to seek the columns. If you find the columns, and you're looking at the wall, on the opposite side of the wall is the planter bed. But from the columns, it's down and to the left. That's where the cask was.
Yeah.
Granted, I get 2 out of 12 is not statistically significant, but there must, and I'm not an expert on Boston.
And there's a lot of stuff there. So columns is a Greek word, just like the word Colosseum. Yeah, I get what you're talking about, because that's where a lot of people said they said the right, the left, or left, the right was wrong.
Yeah, but I think
you mentioned.
Yeah, I think they again.
Yeah, because from right to left. I wrote all kinds of notes in here for Cleveland.
If you had read that line from the columns rather than being on the other side of the wall, you would have had it like that. From right to left, seek the columns from right to left, and you would have had the cask. That's why and again, nothing against the gentleman that found Cleveland. They found it.
Yeah.
But they didn't solve it. They found it.
See, here's something. Listen, this is, people can look this up too, because I already did the research. I got it all written in my book right here. So when you say columns, right? And we know what columns you're talking about at Greek Gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But think of columns like columns of text, right? So
fair enough.
You go back in the early days of writing, everybody did write from right to left.
Fair enough.
That's early writing. And that's early Greek writing.
You're not wrong, but man, that's so high level thinking.
That's the book. That's why I tell people the book.
I think that's beyond young adulthood. That's like scholarly.
Now wait. It gets better. Either one of y'all got your phones, right? Look up 7 steps of writing. where the verse says 7 steps you could hop. It's going to blow you away.
I'm not gonna look that up, Eric. That's so deep.
There's a lot of references to when you're writing a book, there's 7 steps, like the start to the end and all the stuff in between. Now look at who else is in there. So you got Socrates, Pindar, and Apelles. So Pindar's a poet, Apelles is a painter. They're all Greek. Free speech, Culpit, and Burt. Free speech. Now, when we say free speech in America, what is that referencing? The Constitution, right?
Or
Which
yeah,
is what? It's a right. It's a written work, right? Free speech. Seek the columns, and this is what I wrote for that newspaper. Ancient Rome. I can't read my own writing. Newspaper. Ancient Rome. Structure. The word columns, but columns like columns of the newspaper. Now, when you look up writing in Greek, this goes way back, and a lot of that stuff applies today. So these are like little Easter eggs that have been hidden in here. Also, the fact that this is Greek and Italian. Okay, so Rome is in Italy, and Greece is Greek. But how the Romans and the Greeks were basically just like this, just like the Scottish and Irish. All the writing, all the literature, all this stuff. Socrates wasn't really he said something about writing. He was more like a free thinker. Like he was more of a person where people just asked him what he thought about stuff. He didn't really write it down. He just basically told everybody. But when you look at, there's a trick to this. Like Byron, okay, so you come around the Greek gardens and you know the back is a lower level that has steps while the front doesn't. So if you're looking at the Greek garden from the side, the front is higher than the back. So you get these instructions in here. It says curved road. It tells you to go around the back. The right, the left says beneath. I didn't even look up like 10th stone and stuff. You know, stone writings and all that stuff. That's what the stone reference can be. Rectangular plot. Rectangular plot is what we know where the cask was, but that was also a reference in a newspaper. If you remember the edges, if you're old enough to remember newspapers, they used to put the little plots in there, which were the little side stories. But if you go back writing and where that all progressed, it's just like Easter egg stuff. It really don't help you, but it's part of, you know, of course I find this after when I go, okay, let me just reference all this stuff to Greek and see what pops up. Beneath the right, see he uses words like if where the one was like beneath, top, rectangular, uses beneath twice.
Hey Eric. Hey Eric, Justin said he got it fixed, and if he can get back in.
He uses the word top and bottom. You know, you just
Can we get a mic
top
check from
and bottom.
Justin to check his audio?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear
There
you.
we go.
All right, I got the earbuds. I got a new phone. I got everything. All right,
You
should
went
be
and got a
good.
new phone for this? This is great.
I did, right like that.
We could hear
Amazon is-
we could hear you talking, but we hear like this boom, boom, boom. You know, and then you were
No, that's good.
real low like this, and then you're going in and out. I didn't know if you had a
Okay,
bad
good now
connection.
though, right?
Dude,
Yeah.
You're great. Yeah.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Okay, wonderful.
But all these little Easter eggs, and then on the last podcast, you know, I talked about the Liberty Bell and all its travels. It traveled to almost every damn city that we think there's a treasure box in at different times. And there's actually history of the Liberty. You know, Liberty Bells replicas were made for all 48 states. Some states still have them. They're usually in the capitals. Some states lost them, but the actual Liberty Bell, because no one today knows what it symbolized, but back then it it was like a symbol of what the flag is today. So when the Liberty Bell traveled around, all these people actually wanted to see it. You know, the story behind it, all this stuff. So they put on trains and they took it to all these expos in Chicago. It stopped in Cleveland. It went to San Francisco. It went to Houston. It didn't go to New York, but it went to Boston and I think Milwaukee. But it was doing all that stuff by train too. So, oh my God, we got a lot of people. How many people we got on here? Got 4 and all these questions. Hang on.
Yeah, lots of Easter eggs. I heard you mention Lafayette Park earlier, Eric. What drew you to that? Because I was just brushing up on some of the back pages yesterday, and the first back page is the Major Demon, and they mentioned Lafayette in that passage, and that caught my attention. I went to Lafayette High School. Lafayette fought around here in Williamsburg, and I had to follow that little Easter egg, and it led me to Jackson Square, which isn't my place. But I know it's a lot of other people's main.
There are clues. I can tell people because I'm sorry to some of these people. I get so many messages. I can't respond to everybody. But the Major Demon leads back to New Orleans because it's a French story. The biggest thing happening in this book is the people aren't using the ferries. But if you look in that story, any puzzle that has something to do with French, there's going to be a little clue in there to that city and that city.
I think he modeled them a lot too. I think that especially with that one, for instance, I got a lot of clues from Montreal from that page, and then I looked at it again with fresh eyes for the Louisiana puzzle, and I found clues that led to Louisiana. Yep. So Carly Perales, he's always talking about the fact that he thinks that they reference multiple puzzles per back page, and he's pulled me over to his side. I think that there might be more than one puzzle related to that each particular back of the book pages.
Eric, can you reiterate what you were just saying about something about the ferries? I was getting a text, and I want to make sure I capture it correctly. Something about parks and ferries.
The book tells you that the ferries do everything in twos or pairs.
Sure.
And what I believe that's telling you, and this is one of them things like I was talking about John Collins Black's book, where he takes a whole page to tell you how you're supposed to work this. Like in his book, he says, read the whole book through, then go back because you might have missed something. Same thing's happening in the Secret Book. So Byron, he gives you a ferry reference to the original ferries. You got to figure out what state, what city. Yeah. But he says they do everything in twos or pairs. So he's telling you, you need 2, you need 4, 6, 8, or 10. As I believe as they get more complex, I believe New York is the most complex. And basically, because of the events of World War II and the Revolutionary War and slavery and everything, it encompasses every one of those countries. That's why they were called world wars, because and there's countries of ferry origin that he's not using,
I have
even though you see on there like Poland is listed on the map on page 10. What's Poland have to do with World War II in Germany? Well, you need to look that up because Poland, the concentration camps, the massacres, what happened to the Polish people, it's a major event of World War II of Nazi Germany. What happened to the British, the Italians, eventually the Japanese, the Russians, all of that. That's why the Russian ferry is for New York and not the Dutch ferry. And these are little tricks of the book. Okay, so Byron used Spanish for St. Augustine's. Okay, Spanish first, the oldest continuously running settlement founded by the Spanish. Okay, so if you take that same history and go, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go to Houston. Okay, Irish founded Houston. Okay, that's right. Go out to San Francisco. It's not Asian. There's no Asian founding. Go to New York. There's no Russian founding. It was Dutch. Why is he using Russia? He's not using that same technique in every puzzle. So every single puzzle is different. Because if you go, oh, okay, he's using Spanish in St. Augustine, so this is a clue to every other city. It is for some, but not for all. He's using the British at Roanoke Island because they tried to form a settlement there. But when you get to New York, you go, okay, New York is Russian. No, wait, Dutch. Dutch met the Indians there. Where's the Russians?
Well, the Russians are the Jewish
Yeah.
Russians that came over.
Yes.
So,
You're right.
yeah, if you dig into New York, you'll find
Religion is a big
Byron's
part.
Byron's ancestors were Russian Jews. Thus,
That's right.
New York puzzle is Russian. So,
Yep.
he's always throwing you for a loop, it seems.
Yeah, and you have to do. This is the most difficult. This book, any treasure hunt book like this, these are called armchair treasure hunts, and they're armchair because you're meant to sit there and read at home and do whatever. Byron, when I did research on Byron, I've said before, and then I did research on how and what techniques you use to actually make something like this. Okay, and some research I was doing today. So this book, and this is a lot of the secret book, is inspiration. So Byron Price was inspired by Kit Williams in the Masquerade book. Masquerade book, 1977. It was finished in 82, 5 years. Okay. But it took Byron 5 years to construct this book. John Collins Black in his book, it took him 5 years to construct. There's treasure inside. I already see techniques John Collins Black is using that are already in here. But the thing is, Byron, I quit counting at 42. And I mean, this is Greek mythology. This is wordplay. This is spelling words in other languages, misspelling words. Using historical references by, it would be like if Chris, you were some historical figure and you were involved in all this stuff. And I described all that stuff without ever saying your name. And someone went, oh, that's Chris. Instead of me saying who you are, which is New Orleans, it's showing, and not even the actual inventions of Ben Franklin. He's showing the swim pins. He did invent a clock, but not that clock.
Assuming that all of the Ben Franklin research is salient to the hunt in NOLA, where does that put you? I mean, that's really the $1,000 question, isn't it? Where does that put you in Lafayette Park?
It puts you right at his statue.
Okay.
And now, once you're there, you'll use 12 North to figure out it's that side where it's buried. If this is another thing, I recently found this out about Charleston. When I went to the Do-Si-Do statue, it's not there. The Do-Si-Do statue was just a reference in the park to put you in the right place. Yep, there you go. That's a possibility for Ben Franklin. So what you have to do, and I think Palancar was kind of given that hint. Everything is in the painting.
How is Do-Si-Do related to Ben Franklin?
No, well, that's the Do-Si-Do is related to, that's the Charleston, and that's part of the kids and the mothers, the Screaming Mimi. These are clues he's giving you.
I misheard. I thought you said that was related to Ben Franklin.
Can I get a roll call on where do you guys think it is? What's your favorite park? I know Eric's got Lafayette Park.
Oh, I'm in Lafayette all day long.
You're in Lafayette as well.
Yeah, and there's Congo. There's a lot of people out there. They go, oh, well, I'm at Louis Armstrong Park or I'm at Congo Park. It's like, you're not wrong. That's part of it. It's in the book. Congo and Louis Armstrong are in the book. That's the African. This is the African fairies' contributions to the book. Congo Park. Now, if you go way back in time of New Orleans, there was only 2 parks. The blacks, they all stayed at Congo Park. That's where they hung out on their days off. Everybody else was at Lafayette. Now, when the poem says "Sounds of Friends in the Afternoon," that is a reference to Lafayette in the history of New Orleans. Now, if that said "Sound of Friend in the Afternoon" of the black people, that would be a reference to Congo Park. I don't think he used Louis Armstrong Park because it had just opened. And
It's got a pretty impressive arch of lights, I gotta say. When I
yeah,
saw that, I was like, wow, that's
and
a
all the jazz would make you go over there. But see, someone asked me the other day, they go, why did not Masquerade had a golden rabbit and Byron did these gems that really don't have any value? And I said, what you're getting is you're getting a lot of value in the knowledge that you're getting. You have to look at what Byron, and I guarantee you Byron would have said that. You're learning so much stuff. You know, this is invaluable information. I've always liked history, but man, I've never read this much in my life.
I have learned more from this book than I have by any kind of schooling. This book has taught me so much.
Anytime anybody says anything, I just go, ooh, okay, that I know that's this. That would be this painting, and I bust out my phone and I start getting on Wikipedia and all this other stuff, just seeing if is there a connection. Anything Ben Franklin did is part of the puzzle.
Let me ask you this:
France, but you got to have the focal point to take the clues down there and go, oh, okay. And now I know why Ben Franklin's in that park in New Orleans because of. And it's like those word on the streets. If you stop people and say, hey, Ben Franklin's here at Lafayette Park in New Orleans, do you know why his statue's here? Those people would go, no. Well, why? Well, during the Revolutionary War, he was ambassador to France, and he went over there and got Lafayette to come over here with the Navy that helped us beat the British and become independent. That's a major historical moment in American history. And a lot of people are walking by that park, and they have no idea who the hell Lafayette is. I mean, these are like these shows when they go, how many states are there in the U.S.? And people go, I don't know, 42? And it's like they're on some college campus, and they're like, I don't know, 38 states? How many are?
I didn't know Ben Franklin and Lafayette were connected, but I do know they were both Freemasons.
Yep.
Some Freemason ties in there.
That's part of it, too. You hear about people talking about Illuminati and Freemasons.
I think there's something buried in there about them. It definitely seems to be some deeper knowledge, some conspiracy-esque angles involved in the book. JFK, a lot of things like that.
Even the verse of New Orleans that said, gnomes admire, gnomes are men. If you look up fairies, gnomes are men. Men admired, and some of them, Ben Franklin, even though he doesn't look like it, 1750 America, Ben Franklin was like Brad Pitt. You can't tell by looking at his photos. Men were jealous as hell of him, and some admired the hell out of him. I mean, he was an author, he was an inventor, he was a founding father, postmaster general. He created the first currency. He invented the Franklin stoves, bifocals, lightning rods. He did flying the kite, the key on it. That's a load of garbage. He would have been killed. Women delighted. If you look back in the day when women were like, yeah, I went out with him. Man, well, like, oh, he was a delight. That means exactly what that means. I watched the show, and I remember a few years back, this guy was like, man, you ever read about Benjamin Franklin's sexual escapades? Like he was married. His wife knew he had girlfriends. She didn't care. He had that reputation, just like Mark Twain did with the young girls. Women delighted in him because even though he's got the look to Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, chicks didn't care. He was Ben Franklin. He was super famous. Gnomes admire, fays delight. It's a direct reference to Benjamin Franklin himself. But you got to literally go to Wikipedia, look up Benjamin Franklin, read down. Every time they got something highlighted, you can click another link to, go read that. And I was looking that up the other day. They always say Benjamin Franklin was the only founding father that was never president. He was vice president. He was actually vice president of it actually wasn't the United States of America, but I think that was during the Revolutionary War. So he actually was the president. He just wasn't president. He was vice president.
I will tell you.
I haven't really found much Benjamin Franklin information in this puzzle. but it doesn't mean it's not there. Hey, Doug, where are you looking at?
I'm over in the abandoned New Orleans Jazz Historical Park that's connected to.
Okay. I've been wondering about the jazz connection with preservation, Preservation Hall. That's the only thing I could find with preservation. I've hitting dead end with that one until I found the Preservation Hall.
Over in that park, it's got a place called Perseverance Hall, number 4, which is a Masonic place.
Aha.
So that's the
It might be something.
for.
You used a misspelling, maybe.
Well, it's a wordplay. You can easily turn. You can easily turn that. That's official wordplay. Forget what it's called, but it's in the book.
Yeah.
Of wordplay.
I mean, if anybody's listening to this stuff, you can just, if you could understand the difficulty level. I don't broadcast anything unless I find it in the book. I mean, everybody has their own theories. They can go to Key West and Tampa and Florida and whatever. But I narrowed this down, and I'm like, I keep going and keep going. And I was like, it's in the book somewhere. Vague as hell sometimes, but eventually you'll go, oh, okay. Once you eliminate everything, pretty much you're in the right area.
Well, image clues are my specialty. I'm an artist full time. I got to say, there's a lot to be said about Audubon Park. Audubon Park has a lot of visuals that coincide with the painting. It's either the starting place of the puzzle or it's the ending place of the puzzle. I don't know if you guys
what's his full name?
I can't remember. It's something French. Don't grill me on that.
Otto. My wife would that. What's that? Audubon Park. The botanical garden areas. Is that what you're talking about?
There's a zoo there. There's a golf course there. But the top of the park, and someone shared this on one of the pages a long time ago. Immediately, bells start ringing. It is a clock. It's shaped just like the clock. I can show you guys if you want to see it. So
I'm seeing it. Let's see.
You guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. So, you see my screen all right?
Yeah.
I see it.
So,
yep, there it is.
Right here is the top of the clock, then the center of the clock, the minute, hour hand, the moon, the size of the clock, and then if you look at the campus of Tulane University, which is a historic university, it's got this long rectangular shape that makes up the body of the clock. So if you flip this around so it's on the bottom, you have the full grandfather clock image. I'm kind of trying to make it a little bit easier. So I'll mess it up a bit. It's pretty interesting. Look at it.
You were showing the same image.
Yeah, I was showing just a different one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say go to that park. Any statue of anybody in there, figure out where his family came from, and then if there's any particulars about him, look in the back of the book, 221 and 222, see if you can find a connection. And of course, it's going to say if he's British, it's going to say British, and you go in there and you should find a clue to any of those things. Problem is,
he's a French guy,
especially New Orleans after Katrina. There's some of these parks got wiped the hell out. There could be
this park, if you guys haven't been there or looked at it, it's amazing. When you stand there in real life, these pillars become the outsides of the clock, like this. Let's see. They're actually like very similar when you look at them. But these are the design blueprints of the front of the park. So these pillars stand right here. And then the clock itself is like three-dimensional.
I see what you're talking about there, too.
It's crazy. It'll blow your mind. So you got, the moon.
Ground floor of the park looks like
this. this. The two circles. And it's pretty wild. When you stand there, like here's the best picture I could find of it. Actually, when you go on Google, let's see, where are we? I use a different verse. I use lane 222. You see an arc of lights. So you're at Tulane University, 2 lane, 222, 2 lane. You'll see an arc of lights. When you're actually down here on the street view, let's see, you'll see this arc of lights. It was lit up when I was there, and it's got lights there. Abaddon. But as you come in front of the college, Tulane University, this is your view. You'll see these pillars here, and then the clock is right there in the back with Gumbel fountain, like I have shown here in the blueprints of the fountain. Yeah, you got the pillars, the fountain, and it is like you're standing there in front of the clock with all of these elements right in front of you. It's pretty amazing. So if you guys haven't investigated that area, I would say give it a look, because that's been my area. That's what I've been looking at.
Yeah, I mean, once someone digs up a box, they're going to be able to, and I really don't believe anybody's truly done it. I think Rob and them, their puzzle had 2 different paths. They took one of them. I don't know anything about how Brian Zen actually got to the Greek Gardens other than a Google search and a Boston fiasco. I ain't gonna talk about that. I don't think anybody. I think Rob and his friends, they did it. They were locals, and I think that solve was basically meant for people just like them. People that grew up there, they knew, when they said, "Hey, that's the water tower downtown," and they were gone, that was it. It was meant for them to take that path because they grew up there. Me, I've only been to Chicago's airport, so I would have never recognized the water tower hidden in the painting.
I think that speaks.
The other book path, I think that's the hard way to get there. And if you're not familiar with that city that you're working that puzzle, that's going to be the true way you actually got there. And once one's found that way, then it'll be even mine. Everything I throw out there it is theory. It's based on the book, but it's still theory. If I ever find one, I think I put most of my dig spots out there, so I'm pretty sure they'll be dug up pretty quick, and the damage will be immense. But once I find one, then I can prove that the way I work the book is correct. But for me, it works because I just use these simple little techniques now because of my memory of the book, and I go, oh, that does connect. But I know that this clue, someone throws out a clue, which I get all the time. What is this? Well, that just proves the city. That proves you need to be in New York. Now figure out the borough. The clues work like a lot of these clues are they're to the state, they're to the city, or to particular areas of the city.
I think
some of the clues overlap too. So like when you read it through, it will mean one set of things. But then when you're trying to find finer details, you can read them again in a different way, and it will pinpoint you even closer to where you're trying to look. So I found that to be true in a couple puzzles where you're like, okay, this definitely means this, but then it could also mean something further down the way. And so you're like going in a circle almost.
Sure.
So it can be pretty,
and they have multiple meanings. That's how deep Byron worded some of these verses to where that one little line of a verse has meanings to 2 completely different things. I mean, he thought everything out, and he's the kind of guy that can do something like this. And I think he did it. I mean, when he put 15 rows down to the ground the other day, I was like, I made a post about that. That's the one I was trying to remember. I said, what does 15 got to do with? And I was like, so you're 15 rows down to the is out. So 15 rows down ground. What does that have to do? So I came across something that was talking about a family tree, rows of a family tree. And I went, okay, so Ben Franklin, what child is he of his parents? He's 15. He's the 15th born to his father. Father had multiple wives, but Benjamin Franklin was his father's 15th child. 15 rows down to the ground. So if you line up all the kids and you say there's 10 kids, from the up to down, ground instead of down, he grounds. I mean, he's just using different words.
Is that necessary to solve it?
It helps prove if you think you got the topic or the subtopic, you ought to be able to compare everything in here. 3 Stands Watch. It's at the Lafayette Park. Sound of Friends afternoon. That's history of Lafayette Park. Here's a sovereign people. That's the French. Build palaces to shelter their heads at nights. Gnomes of Meyer Fade Delight is a reference to how people felt about Ben Franklin. Namesake means to the site. Jewels abound. So that's New Orleans. The jewels, Mardi Gras.
See, I use that verse for Montreal.
In the verse.
That's my Montreal verse. Because I'm at Mount Royal, where jewels abound. So, the
same spot.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got all that history of Montreal, and then it's Montreal is got a religious background. That's also in Charleston. Where else is that going to be? Charleston and Montreal got the biggest religious backgrounds. It's like the fleur that was covered up in Montreal, because that's the football symbol for the New Orleans Saints from the team spirits. So he used it in Chicago for the Cubs and the Bears, the big C, but had to block it out into Montreal because it'd make you think, if you figured out the sports teams, you'd go, hey, that's the Saints logo. And he was like, no, but that's the Montreal painting. So cover that crap up. Didn't put it, used the symbolism of the night piece to Paul Morphy. When you look up chess in New Orleans, when chess exploded in Europe, and everybody knows about the history before Katrina, there was chess boards on every damn corner in New Orleans. People would you sit down and just play people at random. After Hurricane Katrina, most of those people left. But when the European chess champs said, hey, let's go to America and find out who the best over there is, Paul Morphy showed up and wiped the floor with all these guys. Of course, in Montreal, Canada is home to the first organized chess federation. Montreal is. So there's your connection. So Ben Franklin, Paul Morphy. When you simply look up chess, you are going to see all these people.
I can buy the NOLA chessboards being around, being significant and relating to the image. But I will tell you, as unpopular as this is going to sound, I feel like the info, the research should be more superficial. Crucify me if you must. I'm a big keep it simple. And my worry is that the deeper level research becomes a self-licking lollipop. It exists just to substantiate itself. And I think if we get too far deep into the weeds, when we say, and that's why I asked the question, is it necessary for the solve? It may augment the hunt, but I will posit that it just isn't necessary. Now, that is not to deny that it doesn't augment, but I don't.
Well, it would be the topic of chess, and then 2 direct subtopics of chess, which would be Ben Franklin and Paul Morphy. Paul Morphy will just prove it's New Orleans. Benjamin Franklin, he just connects the chess.
Well, let me ask you this: how many clues are required to beat somebody over the head and say this is New Orleans? Because we're hearing a lot of info that says this tells me it's New Orleans. This tells me it's New Orleans.
I mean, like how many levels of or layers of the onion?
How deep do we have to go?
I haven't kept track.
No. I'm saying.
I know on New York, I stopped keeping track at 36.
I mean,
This is
if it
36
was
different levels of history to start to where I started connecting stuff back to other stuff and going, oh, brother.
sure, but if
You
one
know.
clue is good enough, shouldn't one clue be good enough? Why do we need 37 clues to tell you it's New York? At that point, aren't we just?
Because that would be too easy.
I think
You got to
37
think,
clues.
in 82, Byron's selling books. He created 12 different puzzles, all created differently.
Yeah.
He was a publisher, and this was to make money.
How many clues? Let's talk about Charleston for 30 seconds. How many clues in the Charleston image are needed to tell you it's Charleston? You have a lat long, or you have the peninsula. Why would we need 30 other clues to tell us Charleston?
That's part of the problem with the secret book, because you get chasing the clue, and until you get to a certain point, you don't realize if it's for the state of South Carolina, Charleston, or it has to do with the puzzle.
Fair enough.
If you can read like me and remember, dude, I lose my car keys in 5 minutes, but I can recall this stuff. And I'll see people will post stuff, and I'll say, yeah, well, I do it all the time. I'll say, okay, so what is that telling you for New York? Like what, and I feel that I know, but I know that they don't know. And they go, whoa, like Paul Morphy, does he have anything to do with actually finding the cask? No. What does he do? Or who was he? He was the oldest son of a couple in his mom and dad, basically everybody died of tuberculosis, including himself at a very young age. What is his claim to fame? He's considered by most the greatest chess player ever, over Bobby Fischer and anybody else. Where's he from? New Orleans, Louisiana, and he died in New Orleans, Louisiana. What does he do? He proves the correct city.
Fair, but so does the mask.
Instead of saying his name, he uses a night piece. Byron does to, what does the night piece represent in New Orleans?
Here's a question.
Paul Morphy, he was called the Knight of New Orleans.
What's the impact of being incorrect on that, on the level of detail required?
Just the Paul Morphy story?
No, the depth of research. If we go down 12 layers, 15 layers, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm saying more of a philosophical question. What's the impact of being wrong about the level of research required to get to that point?
Great question. Here's what I'll say about that. John Palancar said that the easiest ones were found first, and it's been almost 43 years.
Fair. He also said we may not be looking
at how they were mostly found.
The history clues range from very complex to very obvious. The way they mention Plymouth so many times, is obviously pointing to the Boston area. Where the Charleston verse, they say, follow the slave ships over the sea. Point you to Charleston. Chicago, Chicago World's Ferry, Chicago Democratic Convention 68. It'll point you right down into Grant Park. So some are pretty obvious. And I think that you start to draw lines where you want them to be with less obvious ones. And then you get into a whole mess, where it is, self-confirming in a lot of ways. But you don't know where to draw those lines. It's, you want to keep connecting the dots. So as much as I am a back of the book believer, I believe that it causes you a lot of extra stress. It might point you in a lot of extra directions. So is it useful? Is it also kind of tricky?
You made the post about the God, I was wondering who the heck was walking in my front door. Just scared the hell out of me. In a hoodie.
Can I add 2 follow-ups to what we were just talking about? Yeah, the only gats.
Justin, you made the post about the oil rigs, right?
Oil rigs. Oh yeah, with the energy, yeah.
And I made
that one,
for that. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm a back of the book guy, but I also see how it can be very much a maze of, rabbit holes that can be just as misleading as they are leading.
So
It's just sorting them out, and trying to keep it simple, but also follow
that's
the.
a bunch of the techniques of this book to make it difficult.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people, they're like, well, Byron said it was easy. I'm like, if he told people how difficult this was, nobody would buy it. It's
Yeah.
like when somebody buys the Total Gym with Chuck Norris, and then they go, "Oh, screw this crap! I'm sweating."
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
bought
buy it anyway.
6-second abs.
They
It
get the
wasn't
models with the muscle, and you're going to look like that in 2 days. And they get it at home, and they're like, "Oh, screw this."
easy. The 2 points I want to make are, and again, it's not indicative of anything we've done here, and it's not a pointed statement at anybody. But one thing I find as I read the message board, the posts and whatnot, and maybe it's just a stickler for language, is we use the word clue and information interchangeably, and I think that's a fool's errand in that something is a piece of information isn't always a clue, even if it's relevant to the hunt. And I think it's a slippery slope we get into where we say, hey, this what is it? Teddy Roosevelt gets talked about in Charleston. Well, that's a clue for Charleston. No, it's a piece of information for Charleston, but that does not make it a
Don't be
clue.
silly about that.
Say again?
I said, don't even get me on Teddy
Right.
Roosevelt. I hear that a lot.
And then the other thing I find, and again, not a pointed statement by anything we've talked about tonight, it's just in general, is I don't think people conduct. Now, the research you do, Eric, wow, that's actually really good research, and I'm not knocking it, but I don't think in some cases people are conducting research. What they are doing is collecting information to support their bias, and that also is a second slippery slope that I find people falling into when it comes to this hunt, regardless of what camp you're in, back of the book, front of the book, whatnot. It's not research that they're doing. It's just what supports my hypothesis, because if it were research, they would test their hypothesis, they would test a null hypothesis,
Sure.
they would evaluate multiple options, entertaining them until they hit a dead
That's
end.
99% of the people. The secret don't want to do,
actual research.
they don't want to do the research. They want to.
No.
There's other pages out there that are, hey, yeah, tell me what you got, and they take your crap and they run with it.
Yeah.
If they find something, they're not going to give you no credit.
R&D,
Well,
man.
you guys also remember Byron was very highly inspired by the Choose Your Own Adventure books. He wrote, a slew of Choose Your Own Adventure books. There's lots of clues in them, so buy them, read them. They're really useful. But he made this book a lot like that. You choose your own adventure, and you go off on your own path through history that he's already laid out. So, it's not a straight line to the treasure. It is a maze with lots of different odds and ends.
Actually, I challenge that notion with, I think you might be correct that there's multiple avenues to get you to the end point, but there's only one that Byron said, this is what I saw, and this is what I'm trying to get you to see.
I don't know. I think he made a maze. He wanted people to get lost. Like, he didn't want the first person to pick it up and
I think
find
you suffer long and fruitless searches when you do that.
The pinnacle of it all is historical references. You just got to, don't get stuck on, if you find something that's like referencing directly the Revolutionary War in a puzzle, don't get stuck on that. Keep chasing that. But if you see something and you go, wait a minute, this is World War I. Well, you better get on that train too, because you don't. But if it leads in, it's like in New York when there's the photo of that monument. Douglas might be more familiar with that, but it's way north of New York. But it's dedicated to the Brooklyn infantry. But they really didn't do nothing in New York. They kind of just passed over New York and went to Washington. Revolutionary War. It's basically a clue to New York, possibly Brooklyn. But when you look in the history of them, you go, well, nothing really happened there. That's just where they were from. Is that what it was? Okay, well, I'll just keep that in this file, and I'll go on to the next clue. It is layers upon layers, spanning different wars. Like I was the one that put out there. So for Chicago, okay, you got Lincoln, Grant, Civil War. What were they? The Union. Okay, so where, and I know this from Ben Asen, Byron's favorite war, Civil War. Where's the South? So the Dixie Pixie story When you look in that has to do with Chicago, right? But Dixie's the South. So where's the story of the Confederacy? That's Houston.
Well, where did the Civil War start?
Virginia, right?
Doug?
Oh no, it started in Fort Moultrie in Sullivan's Island.
Started
Charleston.
in
sorry.
White Point Garden and Fort Sumter.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first
The
first
Revolutionary War and the Civil War both started there. It was Fort Moultrie, which is my take for Charleston, not Charleston.
Is both.
I know that ruffles feathers, but it's not in Charleston. It's in Sullivan's Island. That's my take on it.
See, when you look at the Leprechaun Man, I think is the one that says Georgia. When you look into Georgia, that was the only Irish Scottish regiment of the Confederacy. It was actually in Georgia. Yeah, Irish Georgia. Area concentration of Georgia. That's why. But that was the Confederacy. That wasn't the Union. So there's your first clue. So you got Scottish Irish in Chicago, and you got Irish Scot in Houston. All he did was flip them because they're always together.
Yep.
Those are two pair ferries. But he didn't use a president and a general. He used it. I've already told everybody. He used a major who was an artilleryman, and at one time he was the most famous person in Houston. And Energini, he was part of the first oil company. He was the founding member of the first oil company in Houston, Texas. The Backyard Barbecue, he was a member of the first fire department. Conflagration events, that whole story is about fires out of control. And that's what led to the creation of fire departments. And the Leprechaun Man in the bars, that's the other job he had. He ran a bunch of bars. Actually, his bar is still there today. 3 stories that link directly to him. He was a fireman.
I don't know if the Leprechaun Man is Al Capone or what. Because you have the Irish connection, Chicago. You got Al Capone, Chicago. You got a picture of a guy who could be Al Capone with a better set of hair.
Yeah. I'm always trying to figure out who that guy was.
I know. Was he like Whitey Bulger? I don't know.
Houston was founded by the Irish. Most people, they go, Houston, Texas, Irish? Yeah. Stephen Austin, that Austin, Texas is named after him. He let the first immigrants to Houston. Majority of them, including himself, were Irish.
I have a really interesting angle.
Was Irish. Who Houston, Texas is named after. Sam Houston, he was also Irish. Desert and all that Middle Eastern Arab, that's because that part of the United States is a desert.
I don't think so. I think there is a very clever angle involved in Houston. Muhammad Ali is mentioned a lot in the book by name. He's mentioned in the Boogeyman by name.
He's got a connection to Houston.
He's got a connection to Houston. And I couldn't help but look at that and look at the history of his why he was there, his protesting of the war. He converted to Islam and changed his name to Ali, and he got put on trial there in Houston. And the more I look at the Houston puzzle, I wonder how much of that is involving Muhammad Ali. Wouldn't that be an interesting twist?
I know it uses Ali Rusk Street, which is Alirusk, and Muhammad Ali had to go to Rusk Street Courthouse there in
Rusk Ali,
and he's Muhammad Ali would be the African fairy. So it's telling you that you need. That's the book telling you need the African fairy as well. Like someone in the comments is hold on, let me find it real quick. Yeah, we gotta go through these.
It might be the Middle Eastern fairy because of his conversion to Islam. That's where I feel like there might be a little curveball there.
Middle Eastern it comes as a bunch of country. Yeah, but that's where you would trace Islam back to Turkey, which is modern day Turkey and Iraq. And Mecca and all that with Islam. Yeah. But if you look, see, when you look in the Garden Goyle, which is the African one, and it talks about the desert. So Middle Eastern, Egyptian, all that stuff. Where do you find that in America? Southwest United States. So that would give you an area. If you didn't know it was Houston or Texas, you'd go, well, we're over here, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas area. This is where the desert is in the United States. He's giving you that sand clue. And then even in the Garden Goal, he talks about the Saharan desert, period. And in the DJ and all that stuff, all that for Texas connects to alcohol, which is also part of that
community in Houston. Also,
say that again.
There's a large Iranian community in Houston.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a large. I think they have the largest Middle Eastern population is down there in Houston. Yeah, when you drive through the south side of Houston, it's hard to miss.
Even
in the downtown area, not so much, but
even the High Jolly references, if nobody knows what that is, he was the guy that was brought in because the old military camps that were out there back in the day, the horses couldn't transport goods back and forth, so they had to bring in camels. You know, camels referenced in the painting. San Antonio, Houston, and these trail paths on through there, the horses couldn't make it to the desert. The heat, sand was just too much. So they had to bring in the camels. That's why the camels referenced in there. I mean, the grid, the block grid, and that is the architect. There's so much architecture. It's almost in every single painting. I mean, that's something we ain't going to get into, but let's see. Let's go to these questions real quick. Someone says Boogeyman is in Charleston. That's correct, because that's jazz. But that story in the book is ubiquitous. So the jazz is everywhere. Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco. That's from The Secret Decoded. They also said the back is not needed, but it greatly helps because it gives the exact location. What are your thoughts on that? I disagree with that.
I mean, I'm not a back of the book guy.
Some of the stories are confirmers. That's the way I put it. Like if you go, this story, I think this puzzle's about the Titanic. You got to be able to find something in the book, and you go, oh, here's the thing about ships and sinking and being in the ocean. You'll find something in there and go, oh, okay. Oh, it's not the Titanic, it's the Edmund Fitzgerald. You know, so it'll take you off on another path.
It can definitely get you going into your rabbit hole. Into finding a rabbit hole. Yeah. You know, Chicago World's Ferry, I think, is like should be the Rosetta Stone about how to read some of these pages. Because it tells you right there, Chicago, 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 Chicago.
Exactly.
The Great Fire, you know, and then it just pinpoints you right there. You know, Soldier Field, O'Hare, you're right in downtown Chicago. It just keeps pinning. You might as well just poke and pin in the same area on the map.
There's more clues than that. He's wearing a baseball hat.
O'Hare's pretty far from where the treasure
black. That's about the Negro League.
But it lists all the different airports in right around the downtown area. So you know,
from the downtown area.
Well, I mean, it also has Soldier Field, which is in the downtown area. So you know, it could be one of those choose your own adventure, you know, branch offs where he's giving you 3 options. One of them is the right option. 2 of them are dead ends. You got to find your way.
The main thing you're getting from that is you're going, ooh, Chicago.
You're going, it's in Chicago.
I mean,
you know, just like the Energy Genie, it's like, you know, it's telling you, hey, the place where we're getting all our oil, the energy capital of the world. It's saying Houston, Houston, Houston. And, you know, I think that if you didn't know where to look and you found a page like that, it could help you out greatly. But,
and if someone new out there doesn't know what he means by Houston's energy capital world, that's where the headquarters of all the oil companies are. They've been there. The show Dallas, you know, oil, Ewing Oil. They're all in Houston. Every damn one of them. That's
my video breakdowns on the page. So if you guys want to look at it, check out the videos. Look for a picture of my face. It's up there. The Energy Genie. I go through all the points that are made in on that page, with the exception of one, which is about the person who inspires you to burn your draft card, which is a reference to Muhammad Ali. So
that's right.
look that one up. So
And that's where I made the post about, Muhammad Ali, Rusk, Ali Street, referencing Houston. So if I thought Ali being that prominent in a clue, you take him over to Charleston, which is the African painting, which he is a descendant of that fairy. And, the woman floating with the butterfly wings, it's like, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. It is using that as a confirmer. Sure. Let's see what we got. The secret Dakota. Scotty Hookset Fishing said it's a werewolf hand. Note the hairs and the claw fingernails. Correct. It could be a zombie hand because of the voodoo too. It looks more like a zombie hand to me anyway, with the cracked nails.
I have a weird angle for that one as well. I found some weird angle when I looked up like scary masquerade story, because it's obviously the painting has a masquerade mask, and it also has this creepy hand, And I found a story by Edgar.
Been set in New Orleans. I mean, it's just monster. Ben Franklin has that. You ever seen that zombification of the founding fathers? I did so much research trying to figure out who created that crap. Everything from hockey goalie mask that got George Washington, Ben Franklin on it as a zombie. I can't find what that means and where that zombification of the founding fathers came from. I don't get it. But that zombie hand would connect directly to Ben Franklin and any the other founding fathers as well. Way 1983 says matches are everywhere. How can we confirm things? Good luck.
Yeah. Let's start digging.
That's for anything. If you find a clue in the secret book, basically, just something off the top of it. Say this. Say Zephyr Hills water was a clue in the book. It's not. If you know nothing about Zephyr Hills, Florida, where this water comes from the aquifer and so on, you would have to do that research. So say you found this in one story of the book, but they really don't talk about Florida, the aquifer, or anything like that. So go to another part of the book and look for something that would reference that. That's the easiest way I can explain it. Something Florida, something water, something you're drinking. Look at all the photos and illustrations of the book and see if, you might see, there might be an illustration of some guy running and he's got a water bottle in his hand. And you go, water bottle. Shoes. Any two. That kind of, it's like the American Motor Gremlins, okay? And the fairy is on the ground on the illustration looking at the car's wheel. And then you go to the Milwaukee painting and there's a wheel. It might be a mill wheel from Milwaukee, but it's also a wheel. What is it? It's a wheel. An old, like, stone concrete caveman wheel. So a wheel. Do they connect? Hell yeah, they connect. Because the American Motor Gremlins is the AMC car company. Their car was called the Gremlins. Where were they based? Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's how you make the connection. They said image verse only. No.
I'll disagree till the day I die.
Verse, illustrations of the book, all the words of the stories of the book. Look for stuff in the book. As you read through the book, you'll start to see the same word is used in multiple stories. I found one where they're talking about it was in Chicago and they're talking about drinking and they're talking about flatulence. And then I find another story with the word, and I was like, I think that's flatulence in Latin. Sure it was. So basically, farting is connecting two stories that have to do with two different puzzles, even though they do have something in common, the North and South of the Civil War. Look for similar words. I mean, there could be words in the verse. That just occurred to me. There could be words in the verse that are in stories of the book. And you'll go, oh, columns. I see it right here in this story. There's columns in the verse for Cleveland. More than likely, there's a clue in there to Cleveland. Way 1983 said Chicago gave you a rectangular box, and Cleveland was found in a rectangular box. The Cleveland rectangular box is called a planter, and that is in the garden goyle. Its actual name is a Saharan garden. It was an invention brought to America by African slaves. That story of the garden goyle tells you to look in planters. If you get to a park and you go, there's a planter there, that's probably where the cask is. Especially if the African fairy is present.
The gargoyle also mentions Plymouth, doesn't it? And I think it also has a line that says pitches his tents, which I was always like, oh, pitch, like a baseball pitch.
Uh-huh.
I
See,
connect that one.
That's exactly how you're supposed to think. That's exactly. Pitch a tent, pitcher on a baseball field. That's exactly. It's the same dang word, but it has two separate definitions and two references to two different things. That's exactly.
With Charleston, with the verse, was it at the birth of a century? I always look at that as century, like a century that stands guard, like Fort Sumter.
And that's a trick.
Spelled differently, though.
It's spelled differently, but it's a play on words.
That happened in recent years, too.
So that's a homonym, and that could work.
The century actually starts, and people were worried about the everything crashing in the year 2000.
Y2K.
But this century right now actually didn't start till 2001.
So
in Charleston, who was famous for getting freedom at the birth of the century? Denmark Vesey. Because he won the lottery and he bought his freedom by 1801. He was a free man.
Where did he buy that lottery ticket?
Charleston.
Yeah, where in Charleston?
Oh, I don't know.
On East Bay Street. Where does East Bay? It was the East Bay Lottery. And where does East Bay run into? Well, I'm a White Point Garden man myself, but East Bay borders White Point Garden. It runs right into it. So I don't disagree with the Denmark
part of it. I'm not gonna tell people White Point. There's some history at White Point, but there's the stuff in the book takes you somewhere. The stuff in the book takes you to multiple parks. There's 6 parks that are actually in the book. There's clues to 6 separate parks.
Well, there's information about 6 separate parks. I think the clues.
Yeah,
are really
there's information about one famous person at Charleston that takes you to like 29 different locations.
Yeah, but
I ain't about to get into that. I didn't even chase that down. I got halfway through that and I said, "Oh no, screw this. This is basically just to prove Charleston." That's what I figured out real quick there.
Yeah.
You got to remember that
I'm gonna let you guys
to mess with you.
You guys go. I'll be right back. All right. Y'all handle it. No fighting.
Yep.
All right.
We'll fight if we want.
But I think that one of Byron's main inspirations for writing The Secret was this one particular book, Fairies, 1978. If you can get a copy of it, it's pretty illuminating. They actually use some of the illustrations from the book in the Japanese edition. So definitely involved in their thinking. I don't see a lot of people post on it a lot, but I will share some pictures in the group.
Justin,
it's pretty interesting.
Do you work Charleston at all?
I've worked Charleston, yeah.
Let me read a quote if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
It's 1924. Beautiful as a dream, tinged with romance, consecrated by tradition, glorified by history, rising from the very bosom of the waves, like a fairy garden created by the enchanter's wand. The Battery affords a fit site for the Fort Sumter Hotel. Here are the White Point Gardens of colonial days, with the sound of sea thundering against the wall and a vista through century-old oaks. That's how they described White Point Garden 100 years ago. I'm under no disillusion that Byron read that quote. I could tell you, he Googled it. But the reality is people in Charleston have viewed White Point as the fairies' garden. So, to people's notion that White Point is along the journey. White Point is the journey, and it's always been the journey.
I don't know.
Well,
I think that. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
see, I've seen these. I've seen numbers in these things, and I see in Charleston that there's one lion, and that to me that equals one king, and like it's one King Street is right across the street from White Point Gardens, and then like also Birth of the Century, it starts at 1. I think that it's screaming the number 1. That's where it wants you to go, and the other numbers would be the one on the other one. Was it 1913?
Yeah.
I believe. So, and it says birth of the century or 1913, and for me, that's telling you it's either on the one King Street side or on the 1913th side. So, plus the fairy has white points on her butterfly wings. So I think there's things that point to White Point Gardens besides, there's an obvious, like on the map thing, there is like an extra thing at the tip. It looks kind of like the obelisk. If you look close at the image, it's kind of reinforcing that the tip of the peninsula is where you want to be. For me.
I take that obelisk looking thing, Doug, and where it enters the peninsula and where it exits the peninsula, I think are significant. It enters the peninsula right on the eastern side of White Point, where May 1913 exists, and it exits at the southeast corner.
Well, hear me out a bit. So, Freedom at Birth of a Century. The first shot of the Revolutionary War and the first shots of the Civil War were from Fort Moultrie. That's on Sullivan's Island. We know from the first few lines of the verse, it references Treasure Island. So that might be a clue that we're looking for an island. And then the bottom of the butterfly's wings, a lot of people pointed to look like the entrance of the bay there where the river comes out, which is Sullivan's Island on your right. That's also where they brought all the slaves. So, follow the slave ships over the sea. And there's a plaque there that commemorates, now this is where the major port for the enslaved peoples were brought into the South. I'm over there on Fort Moultrie. I think there's a lot to be said there, but as you guys said, there's so many ways you can look at it and so many good ways you can decipher it, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
That's right. That's all part of the puzzle too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are at Sullivan Island. You just got to be careful of some of them places in Charleston because they're like St. Augustine. They're watching everybody like a hawk.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'll share this with you. I shared it with Doug earlier, and I won't go into specifics, which is really a crummy thing to share. You talk about imagery matches. I believe JJP, as best as possible, painted the imagery matches to be pretty close, pretty spot on. Columns, fence posts, home plate. I theorize, I'll use a gentle word, that there's an image match in the Charleston image, and that image match is in there 17 different times, and people have yet to see it. And once you do, you will never unsee it. I'll leave you with that.
Thing, right?
Oh, come on, man. No cliffhangers.
Is this that one? Is that a rule in this one?
Come on.
I'll tell you, but it's a White Point thing. So if you're
And
not
I have dug up 3 treasure boxes, and I'm not showing them to anybody.
Yeah, no.
I get that question all the time. How many you got that you're just not telling anybody? I said, you seriously think I'd be able to be quiet?
I have one. I just don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I dug it up.
Oh my God. You're gonna have
so many people.
It's gonna be on CNN tomorrow.
Yeah. For
Someone's go, he's got one. He's got one.
break down the macro with Charleston. What are the macro elements of the Charleston
Watch
image?
this. Hey, Josh Gates. Show it
Yeah.
again.
No.
Look, Josh Gates.
Ah,
That thing was really light, dude. Is that made out of styrofoam?
it's made out of unobtainium.
Hey, send me some of them, man. We'll give them away.
What are the macro elements in the Charleston image? I'll post that to you, Justin. You're the artist.
You got the lion, which I think represents African immigration.
Just tell me the elements without.
All right, you got the skull. You've got the daisy. You've got the woman, the butterfly woman. I think that's basically it.
You've got
And
a
the pear.
You've got a lion. You've got a tree branch. You've got the mask or skull, whatever way you want to describe it, and you've got a woman. What is a woman doing?
Yeah, she got her hands up. She's got like gold cuffs on her wrists.
Yeah.
She's
What is
like
she
the jam.
doing? What is she doing? What action? Give me a verb. What is she doing?
Some people say she's dancing. I don't really see much motion there.
I mean, it's a two-dimensional image that doesn't move.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't see a lot of motion.
I know. Well, it could be interpreted in a lot of different ways.
If it were ballet, you might say she was doing a pirouette, which is a spin, right?
Mm-hmm.
A dance. She's a dancing woman. And in White Point, there's only one figure in the park titled the Dancing Girl, which happens to share the same outline as that dancing woman.
You're right.
So, what do you make of the lion's chin?
I don't know. I haven't looked there as much as others, I guess.
It looks weird, right? You flip the image upside down. Doesn't the lion's chin look weird? It doesn't look right. Agree or disagree?
I guess I haven't looked at it. I got to pull it up.
It looks like he's got a goatee.
He does have a goatee, right? But it's just weird.
It looks
What
like
if,
fire or something like that. I don't know.
Teddy
People
Roosevelt.
say the nose is the capstan. I'm like, yeah, it could be.
The nose.
I've never even bought. I've never even really. It looks more like a chalice to me.
The nose to me looks like an old school. If you got any northern people, an old school bubbler or drinking receptacle. Fair? Unfair?
I know where you're going. You're going to the water fountain girl. Come on.
But let me ask you this: have you been to the water fountain girl, Eric?
Yeah, but see,
So
I was there with David Day a few months back.
So what's wrong with the drinking apparatus from that fountain? It doesn't match.
Yeah, and it didn't really produce any water either.
Well, they've got it turned off right now. What if I told you it used to be the old style?
What did it have, like the push button?
Yeah. And what if I told you it had the push button in 1981?
Yeah, I'd say that was probably the norm back then.
Well, actually, it wasn't. When it was installed, it had the current one, and in 79 or 80, it was removed and installed with a push button, which led to significant leakage. That's why the lion's nose is painted the way it is, because when Byron buried the cask, wherever he buried it, supposing it's White Point, the nose of the lion matched the drinking apparatus that was on that fountain at the time. And it was replaced back to its original in 1982.
I mean, looking at the nose, it could be a fountain. I mean,
you want to have some fun?
It has like that bird bath look to it.
Yeah, could be a fountain.
And I mean, if you kind of took the negative there of the bottom, I mean, that thing, the full nose could be like a wine glass of flour.
Oh, I hate the wine glass notion. I think that's so. It's like
I've never heard that. I just staring at it. Yeah, but I mean, the thing with the drinking girl, people have asked me that before. The woman dancing, the kid dancing, that's part of the book because because of the Charleston. There's a candy and there's a dance and there's jazz references to Charleston. So you have the Charleston dance, you have the Charleston candy bar. That's the, oh my God, I'm running a blank on these stories. That's the one where it's showing all the junk. That story is directly to Charleston, though.
So the other thing about the Charleston image, Justin, maybe you can appreciate this. It's two-dimensional, but it's really three-dimensional because you have the macro elements are layered. Agree or disagree?
I think it's got a little bit of both.
So you've got up in the forefront, you've got this woman doing whatever she's doing, choking herself. I saw somebody, she's got her hands around her neck. And then behind her, you have another element. And then behind that, you have an even further element. You've got the dance, you've got the girl, you've got the skull, you've got the lion in the background. And I think, all these things, they present an interesting concept.
There's something else about her, too.
There's tons about her.
She's also a mother.
I think that's.
I actually showed that image to a person that I won't name. That was a like a Haitian, an expert on Haitian. Basically, she's wearing a bikini, and she said that image is more about showing her physique, being childbearing. That kind of focus on her.
Here, let me show you guys.
Because we had the children references, the dancing references. The Fountain Girl is one of the things that it's one of those 29 areas you'd have to visit. But of course, if you hold up the Do-Si-Do statue that you got, that is in the book when it references two of them.
All right, I'll tell you what I see when I look at Charleston.
And where is that the image in White Point, the Water Fountain Girl, and Do-Si-Do? What do they have in common?
Willard Hirsch.
Exactly.
Who is Jewish and from New York, just like Byron.
So here's a quick little rundown
he's from Charleston.
Some of the visual things I see. So check this out, guys. What do you guys think? So when I look at Fort Moultrie, I see what could be the butterfly. So let me see if you can see what I see here. Can you see the points here being butterfly wings like there? And then when you're actually at the entrance of Fort Moultrie, you got, this is the entrance, which always reminded me of the lion, his eyes, the nose.
I feel like JJP's matches are more strong than that, and that's not to diminish what you're presenting. I just, in my experience with studying his work, his matches aren't that abstract.
Well,
but continue.
The thing is you also have the mask at the museum here, and you also have the obelisk, which is the Osceola's burial ground here. So right in front of the entranceway, which I believe is the lion's head, you have this obelisk, which is where Osceola was buried. In the picture, it's adjacent, almost directly adjacent, just like it is in real life.
Well, zoom in on her.
Osceola, I don't know if you guys know about Osceola, but he was, he fought in the Seminole Indian Wars. He was a champion for the enslaved peoples because enslaved peoples were running down south to escape slavery, and Osceola was fighting for the Seminoles, and they teamed up to fight the federal government for their freedom. So all that links up so well with the African cask.
Would you indulge me, Justin?
Yeah, go for it.
Flip your phone around and zoom in on what would be the observer's right wing of the ferry.
Okay.
Thank you.
There we go.
So it would be your right, her left.
Justin, can you send a link of that?
Teddy, what?
Can you send me a link of your screen on your computer there?
I don't know how to do all that.
I mean, I could present it. I just, so that the viewers, for the kids at home, zoom in on her wing. That's her right upper wing.
This one?
You have to forgive me. I can't see. Just keep zooming in.
Okay.
Other wing, the other side. That's her. That's her right. Your left. Actually, I don't know. Maybe the camera's transposed. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's flipped around.
What do you make of
Okay,
that
this one.
symbol above her left elbow?
Above her
Not the
left
circle.
elbow. These ones?
Yeah. What is that?
Or these?
Yeah. Well, hold on. No. I can't see where your mouse is doing. You were just over it, where that first circle is above her left elbow.
You talking about the white part?
Go hover over her left elbow, Justin.
Oh, over here?
Yeah, so that circle and its surrounding area. What do you make of that? Eric, what do you make of that?
To me, I see cannonballs.
To me,
So,
I see this hand. It's going to be hard because of the whitewashing. And
What
that
is
is
that?
the left hand of the dancing girl statue. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. It's literally a thumb and 4 fingers going like that.
Huh.
You mean in the
Maybe.
corner of the wing?
On the left hand.
You talking about the two white circles?
No, those upper ones? No. The circles, there's 4 main circles on the upper and lower wings, and they're alignment points in my theory. Let's look at the lower wings real quick. You see the
I'm
circles
looking
on
at
the
the two
lower
white
wings?
circles that are next to her left elbow.
Let me
There's
see.
blue around there, and then there's 2 little white dots.
Yeah, no, those are up. That's in the upper corner part of the wing. No, I'm talking about the circle that's directly. Oh, I see the white circles you're talking about. Go above that. There's an amber colored circle with a black dot.
Okay, I see that.
That's an alignment point. Let's go to her bottom parts of her wings. You see the dark circles with the white dots on the lower wings?
Yeah.
They're alignment points. Each one of those figures that rests below that that circle actually comprise the left and right parts of her face. What JJP is telling you to do is connect the dots. Bring those 2 circles over the top of each other, and you get a complete image of her face.
I see what you're saying. Like he drew her face and then split it with
And
the
then
wing.
split it and put 2 circles there so you know what to do.
I like that better than Teddy Roosevelt being the house thing, for sure.
If I never heard Teddy Roosevelt,
Quit taking shots at Mark when he ain't here.
shots fired.
Teddy, Teddy's part of it, but
I don't think Teddy is, and I'm not afraid to say it. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but I think it's not relevant. It's superfluous information. It might be again. I'll say
definitely liked Teddy Roosevelt because he included him in one of his previous books.
It
It
may be relevant.
Going on. He has some obsession with Teddy Roosevelt. I'll tell you that. He includes him a lot in his work.
Teddy's got very little history with Charleston, but he has a lot of history with African and something else that I'm not going to say.
I mean, so does JFK. JFK literally stood as a young ensign in White Point Garden, talking to sea cadets. But the only reference you might have.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Part of the book talks about White Point.
Charleston.
But there's
Say
more.
that, Doug?
I said JFK is one of the secret parts of Charleston, in my opinion.
I mean, JFK stayed at the Fort Sumter Hotel with
that's right,
with his Russian spy, and
he had a romance.
When you talk about the Japanese clues saying a White House or the White House, it's a colloquial reference to his proximity to the White House. It was a future president, right. And he literally stood in that park. So if I had to take a camp to live in, I would pick JFK as my president over Teddy Roosevelt being more relevant to the hunt. But that's
Well,
just
and
again.
also he became president at a birth of the century in 1861 and brought freedom. Everybody was very happy.
Yeah, but there's so much stuff at White Point that's not in the book. Absolutely not in the book.
I'll tell you that
Mhm.
that dancing
William
girl here.
Hirsch, he has a piece of artwork at White Point.
Mhm.
Is that part of it? Because William Hirsch, he was actually born in Charleston and died in Charleston.
And
He's a local.
studied in New York. Yeah, he was Charleston's most prominent sculptor.
Yep.
That
And who
dancing
do you
girl.
think gave? You know, Byron asked the people involved with the book to help him with some of these people. And there's a picture in 1981 where he's standing right at that do-si-do statue. But look at what he did. A lot of the clues are in what he did. He did mothers, kids, Africans. He did a bunch of animals too, but he had a primary
If you
kind
look
of
at that
artwork
image,
he did. And he did portraits. He did a lot of portraits of people. You know, people
He
used
did-
to sit down to have him make, you know, basically
reliefs.
a sculpture
He would
out
do
of him.
bas reliefs is what he would do.
Yeah.
That dancing girl, I will tell you this: that dancing girl is in that image 17 times. Once you see her, you'll never unsee her. She's in the diamond. She's represented as the dancing figure. She's in the forehead. She's in the lion's mane. She's all over that image. And
That little clue inside the shoes, right over her head.
once you see her, you'll have to ask yourself, would you paint? And this maybe Justin, this is a better question for you. Would you paint something 17 times in an image to send somebody to a different park?
You know, I have to see it. I don't know.
Well, no, you don't have to see it to answer that question. It's a very,
I don't know,
very,
you know, because some images
Would
can
you-
be similar, you know, but
would the
there's
question
dead
is,
ends. I think he built in
would
these tricks.
you, Justin, would you paint something in an image 17 times for the purpose of sending somebody where that clue was not?
You know, I don't know.
I'm
I
not
definitely
asking
wanted
what you
to
think
trip us
Byron did.
up.
I don't see it.
You know,
I'll just say
Byron
it.
didn't want us to find these right away. If we found all the treasures right away, then the book would be
You
useless,
saw it
worthless.
16 times.
sitting on the
I'll look
shelves.
for it. I'll look for it once, but
Well, I'll take you to another one. Let's go to the left side of the image, the lion's hair.
Mhm.
Doesn't that look weird to you? The viewer's left.
Yeah, he's got more hair on the left than the right, I think. Different shape.
It is. I'm sorry, the camera's a little. It is the dancing girl. Let me see. It would be her right. God dog, this inverted camera's got me all foobarred. So you see her arm, and you see the swoop of her foot just above the pear.
yeah.
And it's so macro, people overlook it. People just assume, well, you know, it's just a lion's hair. But it's there.
Hmm.
The observer's right cheek, the lion's left cheek. Flip the image upside down, and it becomes her arm from the back perspective. Something like that. You just have to have a prop in hand to be able to really see it. But once you
All right,
see
I've
it,
got one.
what's
you
that?
know, I've got an image match on Charleston that I always have loved.
Well, you asked about
that's-
imagery matches.
I know the imagery matches are telling, you know, and so and you got to sort them out, and sometimes they stack up, and so you know, with Charleston, I think that the different forts about say a lot. Obviously, I've pointed out Fort Moultrie, but Fort Sumter is clearly pictured in the painting. The baseball diamond image is a direct representation of Fort Sumter.
You know, Kip Palencar put a comment out a couple years ago. Did you guys happen to catch it on Facebook? It was about the pair. Justin, you mentioned something interesting about century and century. It's a homonym. Well, Kip Palencar actually wrote a comment to that effect. And he said, "Why is it pair, P-E-A-R, and not P-A-I-R, as in to pair something with something?" Now, if you look at the image, you've got a pair, and maybe that's indicating that you need to connect something to another thing. On the
I think
branch,
there is a pair. I think you're right about that.
as in a
We lost
P-A-I-R.
Douglas.
I think
Yeah.
we lost Doug.
I think Douglas's phone went dead.
I don't know.
That's happened before.
But, I mean, you guys seen the other fort that looks like a lion, right? There's, was it Fort Pinckney or whatever?
Castle Pinckney.
Castle Pinckney, yeah. The one that looks like a
Kind of like a little
lion's
bear
cub.
cub or lion cub.
Yeah.
From the top.
I wish I could find it. I don't know where it is right now. I guess
It's
Google has erased it.
Just east. Go to
Just
map.
east of White Point?
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. All right. So if you haven't seen it, then here it is. So you guys can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one fort. And then you have Fort Sumter down
Hey, Doug's back.
Good.
here a bit.
Hey, what's
Just
up?
Doug, while you were
represent-
gone, we solved it. You missed out.
And we
And
dug
then,
it up.
What's that,
I
Aaron?
pointed
I got the cask. How did you solve?
So we dug it up in
Yeah.
Arizona.
We're not going
But-
to tell anybody, though.
Something other people have pointed out is that these barrier islands bear a striking resemblance to the bottom of her wings.
They also look like the
So-
white part under the eyes of the lion.
Oh yeah, but like you can notice this one here on the left or my left. The angle of it is so similar to the wing here.
How do you
And
get that? I mean, I get topographical maps, I get maps, but man, to get that level of granularity in 1981, I just don't. I'm not tracking, man. I agree, it's compelling and similar, but I don't see how it
Well, when you have
translates.
all three, when you have Sumter, then you have Pinckney, and then you have these images, and coupled with, we're in the right area, we're in the Charleston area. Like here's another topographical image. So I think when you start stacking them up, then you add a lot of evidence to your argument.
Maybe. A
There's
lot of
there's
people are on
another,
that side of the river. A lot of
another
people are.
comment. Way 1983 is like sent us like 50. We can't even go through all these. Pair. 2332 White Point Garden, WPG, Capstan Fountain, home plate, hand over hand.
I don't know what that means, but
They're saying clues are symmetrical.
I think in this one there is a clue that's twins. So in my case, it's twin cannons that are out Fort Moultrie. Cannons are pictured a lot in the book. Lots of photos of cannons. So
remember where that was.
That's where I'm looking.
and you got the Keokuk cannon.
Tips. It says where it says two dancing in tightly. That's the clue to the Do-Si-Do statue.
Yeah, I just don't think it's at Washington. Although Washington's got some compelling stuff. The numbers in the main match the house numbers on the east and west side of Washington Park.
It's not
You ever
Washington.
seen that? Yeah, but
there's something that takes you somewhere else.
Yeah.
I thought it was at the Do-Si-Do statue, but obviously it can't be buried there. It couldn't be buried there in 81. They replaced all the grass. That ground out there, if Byron had a shovel 42 years ago, it had been exactly like it is today.
Yeah.
You are in a major task trying to dig out there. So there's some William Hirsch, he's part of the clue. He's got multiple statues all over Charleston.
Yeah.
He's part of that clue. Takes you somewhere else. I'm not giving none
Why
of
the
that.
Treasure Island reference? And a lot of people point to the gold bug Edgar Allan Poe's The Gold Bug.
Well, what does
I
Treasure
think-
Island have to do with Charleston?
Yeah.
I've heard.
See,
I've heard
that's
that.
what I would. It's like, you know, verse clue. Like if people want confirmers for Charleston, like the Tale of Men and Tunes. If you actually look at songs and stories from
I think it's as simple
American
as that.
past, they're all most of them have been written about Charleston. Charleston's actually mentioned, city of Charleston, in songs and in stories.
I think that line is just such an overcomplicated line. Men of tale and tunes are just authors and musicians.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's part of the music, part of the jazz. I mean, there's a little candy in there. There's a little dancing. It's
I'll tell you,
African. What's the other one? You're looking for the other one.
when you talk about
Hey,
tales
I can tie that
and
all to Fort
tunes.
Sumter House.
Say that again, Doug.
I can tie all that to Fort Sumter House. That's where right across the street. That's where the Rampart Room was, and that's where they had musical acts. That's where all the rich people went and ate. So there was Tales and Tunes right across the street from White Point Gardens.
I think there's tales and tunes in White Point Garden, and let me tell you
And
why.
Tales and Tunes is the old. We don't say that anymore. Today you'd say stories and music.
Well, it's
I mean,
not
you got to
even
even look at
tales
the
and tunes.
timeline of the words he's using.
Well, we're not even talking tales and tunes. We're talking men of tales and tunes. So we are talking
Well,
authors and
exactly.
musicians.
Tennessee Williams wrote a street named Desire at Fort Sumter House. Also,
He
so
certainly
there's you got
did.
all.
Here's one here for you, Douglas.
Yep.
Don't nobody say Teddy. Fair pay. Who waited for fair remuneration? Fair
I
pay
did.
is. I think that is. It's a reference to your fair pay for doing the story and whatever is going to be the treasure box, and eventually
Yeah,
the gem.
I agree with that.
I've
agree that
searched
that's
fair pay. Fair pay does connect to Teddy. That goes through. Also, the women. You see a woman in the painting, right? So think about fair pay. A woman still goes on today. Women don't feel like they're. At one time, they weren't getting paid properly because they're females.
So
Who is that? How does that connect to Charleston or anybody in Charleston?
my take on the tales and tunes are this. You have the bandstand, which I think if you're a white pointer, you would say the bandstand is prominent for musicians. Music. That's your tale of tune. Tales, men of tales. You have
That could be the pirates.
no, for me it's the
I mean, that'd be a tale. You know, all the pirates that got executed at White Point.
one second, I'm gonna forget the
But
guy's
that's
name.
vague. I mean, this is where you're dealing with the absolute vagueness. That
Well, I
could
don't like
actually
vague.
connect to the bandstand with the big show bands, that was part of jazz before.
Well,
Jazz
indulge
just
me.
wasn't a trumpeter or a sax player; it was a whole band.
Indulge me for a second.
Now,
There's
okay.
a bust between the bandstand and the capstan, the 1913, and that's a bust of William Gilmore Simms, who was a prominent lawyer and an author, and one of his most prominent works was the Yemassee. I've not read the Yemassee. I won't sit here and tell you that I did, but I did read the preface of the Yemassee. And the preface of the Yemassee, if you have not read it, has him saying, "Allow me the indulgence of," and I'm paraphrasing, of telling you that this is a romance novel, in spite of what others might say. And it's a story about American Indians, the Yemassee Indians, and whatnot. And I think that's Byron's line of all the old romance retold, or I know I butchered that line. Because the author himself, William Gilmore Simms, who's in the park, is an author, a man of tales and of romance tales. And to me, it's that simple. I don't need to know anything beyond surface level history to get from May 1913 to Men of Tales, Men of Tunes. So May 1913, Capstan, Men of Tales, William Gilmore Simms, bust, Men of Tunes, Bandstand, and then Cool Clear Water. You either go to the Hunley Memorial or you go to the Dancing Girl Fountain. The end.
Yeah, Good point. Cool, clear water was the only thing I could not tie
Yeah.
to Washington Park.
You stepped away. Would you guys indulge me again one more time? Eric stepped away when I read that quote. Eric, this is a quote from the News and Courier, 1924. And I will tell you that Byron definitely Googled this. Actually, that's a joke. But I'll read you the first two sentences of it. And again, I'm not here to convince you, White Point. I'm just telling you what bolsters my fervor for that site. Beautiful as a dream, tinged with romance, consecrated by tradition, glorified by history, rising from the very bosom of the waves. Like a fairy garden created by the enchanter's wand, the Battery affords a fit site for the Fort Sumter Hotel. Here are the White Point Gardens of colonial days, with the sound of sea thundering against the wall, and a vista through century-old oaks. 100 years ago, they described this park as a fairy garden, and I think that speaks volumes for how people since then have looked at this park.
All right, I've got the Treasure Island quote. If you guys want to hear it.
Sure.
All right, so this is from PB Works. Read the verse first. Of all the romance retold, men of tales and tunes, cruel and bold, seen here by eyes of old. And from Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, to the hesitating purchaser. If sailor tales to sailor tunes, storm and adventure, heat and cold, if schooners, islands, and maroons, and buccaneers, and buried gold, and all the old romance retold, exactly in the ancient way, can please as me, they pleased of old, the wiser youngsters of today.
What's the Treasure Island connection to Charleston?
It's loose.
I
And
think
That's where it is.
I mean, is the
I
author
believe
from there? What was
I
that?
just
The
believe
actual backdrop setting of Treasure Island?
this
I mean,
is
I
my
never thought
out
that
there
was-
theory. So my theory is Byron trying to put you in a headspace of either a person from history or a story that is well known.
Or is it just a pirate history?
I mean, to me, it's telling you to look at an island. You know, I don't think you would put a Treasure Island quote in the very beginning of a verse unless you're trying to point to an island that has treasure on it. That seems pretty obvious to me. But when I actually walked on the beach hunting there, I couldn't help but feel like I was in Treasure Island, which was a really odd feeling to feel as if you were a character in a book that you had just read. And I think that was something that he was trying to do with us, was like almost like give us a augmented reality experience. You know, if you read The Gold Bug by Edgar Allan Poe, and then you're on Poe Avenue on Fort Moultrie on Sullivan's Island, and you're standing on the beach, and you just read a story about pirates using treasure maps to find treasure, you can't help but feel like you are walking in their shoes, which is something I've never had a book do.
that had to be pretty deep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you guys haven't checked it out, if you're ever in Charleston, give it a look. That's my location of interest.
This Treasure Island is a child's garden of verses.
Say what?
Kidnapped in Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Robert Louis Stevenson, Scottish novelist. He wrote Treasure Island.
Mm-hmm. And you know, Sullivan is. I think Sullivan was a Scottish or Irish immigrant as well.
Yeah,
not
he was
bad.
a Scottish novelist. So that puts the Scott. Yeah, and plus Poe was stationed over there.
Poe was stationed there,
Yeah,
and you got to look at this bug or the butterfly, and I get gold bug vibes from it. You know, there's a lot of gold in the painting, and she's wearing gold cuffs. And then you read the story, or if you want to listen to it on audiobook, it's like 15 minutes. It talks about they look through a skull's eye to find the treasure. it's very interesting, and when you line all of that up, I think it adds to a very compelling argument for that place. But
I've never read Treasure Island, so
I haven't read Treasure Island either. The Gold Bug by Edgar Allan Poe.
characters.
That's what I
John
was-
Silver, Dr. Dave Eversey, Captain Alexander Smollett.
I have.
But they're treasure hunting stories. Both are, all about hunting for treasure, using different clues that are left. So
Curious why Byron would have used it for Charleston. That's what I'm.
Maybe he's trying to look at an island.
Y'all, I gotta duck out because I get up at like 4:45. But
Oh man.
I appreciate it. Eric, thanks for the host.
Okay, man, come back on, dude. You got a lot of good stuff you're adding. I'll take you off here, and then you can pop out.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it, Chris.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Bye.
Yeah,
It was good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just curious as why he would. The original title, Treasure Island, was The Sea Cook, a story for boys by, you got the kids there. This is almost like it kind of remind me of Huck Finn.
Yeah, I mean,
which is a story of two other boys. But see that would apply to the kids and mothers and dancing, and that's a big part of the Charleston with the jazz. This is where we got these levels of, you got Revolutionary War, you got Civil War, you got the dancing to Charleston, the dancing to Candle Bar, you got women and kids, which is big reason why I was there at Washington, because you got there's a monument there to, what the heck is the mother there? The president's mom. She came there to help during the one war, but she got sick and died there. She's buried somewhere else, but there's a memorial there. There's a lot of stuff with Charleston. Even the stuff Chris was saying. There's any of the stuff that anybody says there. There's a lot of stuff in the book they're all missing. I've had to go back for Charleston 8 separate times and go, why is the cask not here? And I go back to the book, and my buddy Jason's like, what'd you find? I said, nothing. Got to go back in the book because there's something I missed. And, the last podcast, I said, hey, I gave away something there. The Elvis S. Presley story. So everybody's got to figure that out on their own. I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah.
But if anybody figures that out, they'll know. They go to a certain park, they'll know exactly what that means. That is literally just this is where I was talking about, like, you'll solve one puzzle, take you to one spot. You'll get there and dig and dig and dig. I remember the first time I said the Do-Si-Do statue, that next time I went, there was a hole in the front and the back. They've since laid grass out there, so there's no digging anywhere around there about it being seen. And that I know a guy that went out there with a probe. He said when he put that probe in there about 4 inches, which he had to force, the probe bent. So there's no, Byron didn't dig out there. There was
Digging's
grass.
hard.
Oh yeah, but that ground
Digging's
ain't
hard.
been touched. People have walked all over that park for 100+ years.
That's right.
This is places it's taking you. It's taking you places, then you go, oh, now there's this, and guess what? Now I'm on a path and I'm going somewhere else. It just like one puzzle, then there's a clue that leads you to another puzzle that has nothing to do with the one you just completed, and you just keep going. Man, we've already been on here for 2.5 hours. We got away from New Orleans so fast. But yeah, every puzzle's different. And the biggest thing, somebody that messaged me the other day, I was like, don't look at what I was doing. The same thing. I was like, where does everybody think this is? Where, Fountain of Youth, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? That's when I first got the book. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to act like this thing just started. I did a little thing about Byron, little thing about how these treasure hunt books are put together. So you know how to work them. They got to, it's not random. It's not guesswork. They're all basically going to give you information to take you to where you need to be eventually in the end. And once you get there, Byron really doesn't. Some of these areas I've found they got a pretty big, kind of hard. You know, if this thing is, there's no box more than 2 feet. Because none of the other 2 dug up or anywhere close to the 2.5, 3 feet yardage. But you got
no.
With the depth and the square footage, this ain't. And plus, I know a guy that actually made a box, and he talked about he was trying to probe it, put the probe right through it without even noticing. It went through the plexiglass and the fake cast box he had made quite simply.
Yeah.
So I think
probably,
go ahead.
Could be in pieces. Like the cast right now, it could be in pieces, most likely. Probably not together anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when Brian Zen dug up the Cleveland cask in 2004, you know, I got an argument with someone. They go, "Oh, you know, he broke that cask." I said, "No, he doesn't even have all of it. He didn't break it. It was already broken. You could see him in the video. He's in that fountain. That dirt is so packed inside that damn thing. He's trying to dig it out and wash it out of there. And I still don't think he has all of it. So a shovel probably took part of that out, or they saw it and like, what is it? Throw it in the trash, whatever.
I think he's lucky that it was still in.
Yeah.
Really.
But, you know, I don't know. I think Byron tried to kind of put that where they'll put a plant there. They'll put a plant there.
Yeah.
That planter's not very deep. And also Byron he didn't go deep at all. I mean, I don't even think the top of that one in Cleveland, that damn thing wasn't even a foot down. I mean, when you watch that video,
at most 12 to 18.
I mean, have some been found? Yeah, they've probably been found. These ones in the ground, these things are going to be a pain in the ass to find.
Yeah.
You have to get
from my own experiences, I wonder, you know, because I've went to a spot that I was, sure it was it, and I started digging, and I hit a rock or a brick or something immovable. And I've wondered, what if Byron went to the same issues? Maybe he made this very complex puzzle. Oh, yeah. He gets to the spot to dig it, and he digs it, and there's a piece of rebar or concrete or, cinder block or something there.
All these
puzzles. He's got to redo it all, like.
It's like if I did a treasure hunt book and said, I'm going to do it about 9/11. You're going to first have to pick a spot. It's going to be New York. I'm going to have to hide that. It's going to be Manhattan. I'm going to have to hide that. And, you can't bury it at the 9/11 memorial. Somebody going up there for a shovel is going to get their head shot off. So you pick, there's probably some close by park that's got some kind of close by memorial or something dedicated to 9/11 that you can add to it. Like at the end, like, oh, this is about 9/11. Oh, here's another little side puzzle to it. And then you just go backwards and you go, take all that information and put it in. So, and it makes sense because you don't want to do I've been working on this thing for 5, say the Ben Franklin in New Orleans, Lafayette Park was really the thing. And you did 5 years of planning and stuff, and then you go there to bury it. The statue's been removed. What you going to do now? All that stuff for nothing. So it's got to be, I don't think he buried it up front. I think he's like, okay, this is going to work. Now we're going to go out there and do the burying. But it's a good chance they've been dug up. Even if you used more planners, who's to say that they just don't go, hey, this thing needs repair. We need to take all this dirt out of here. The whole park gets bulldozed and remodeled, which is like what I think happened in New York City. So there's a million, all these years. 42 years, man, it's a really long time. It's anything could have happened by now.
Yeah. It could have been swept out to sea in Charleston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Roanoke Island's been swept out to sea. That's the only one. There's a possibility he could have put some more deeper where he could dig deeper just for, shits and grins. Like, yeah, this is the beach. I can go really deep here because people dig. There's erosion. Digging on the beach 3 feet. I've done that multiple times at the beach. That's not really hard to do. These other places with roots, stuff like that. Some of these places, you got to be able to just look at them, probe the ground, and go, yeah, I ain't digging here. He wasn't out there for 30 damn minutes trying to dig a hole. Any of these parks, even back then, he would have got spot. Somebody would have spotted him. So
that's true.
This. So I mean, you got a million things going on. It's what I tell everybody. It's in the book. You got to figure it out. It's in the book. Don't go out digging or nothing until you basically start to make determinations, locations where you think you're at.
Yeah. You guys made heads or tails of numbers in the New Orleans painting. I've been trying to figure this out. 1929, 90. What is all that about? That seems like pretty direct clues.
That's why I put 1919 was. It was either
1929.
29 was buying the purchase of the Philadelphia Gazette by Benjamin Franklin. Everything I have connects to Franklin. 90 was 1790. That's when he died. And 1719 was, I think that was the same. He wrote a story about Blackbeard, and he got his first job working for his brother. I think he was, what would it be, 14, 12, something like that. All those dates connect to him, especially the date of death. That's used a lot in The Secret. It's like William Hirsch in Charleston. Born in Charleston, died in Charleston. You got Paul Morphy in New Orleans with the chess. Born in New Orleans, died in New Orleans. Ben Franklin, he's just using his death date. But the other two histories are they're major linked dates. The Philadelphia Gazette was when he bought his first newspaper. And he was working for his brother. I think he was running a printing press or something, but it was his actual first job. But he was already doing his writing stuff at that point too. Benjamin Franklin started pretty young doing the stuff he was doing. I think at age 12. He was already in the inventions early and stuff like that. Good swimmer, like the paper boy looks like he's kind of swimming. You also got that effect too.
Is he a paper boy? A lot of people think he's like a golfer. And I was, I'm in Audubon, so there's a big golf course there. But looking at his hands, it appears like one is gloved and the other is not gloved. You can see all the fingers.
One looks like it's got a shoe on it.
Yeah, one has definitely got something on it. There's something weird about him. Like his stockings, for instance, on one leg go like all the way up his leg. Let's see. Which is really strange.
Yeah, that arm above his head actually looks like it's got that is a shoe. I mean, even the flowers.
A high heel shoe.
Yeah.
I think he's a jockey.
Plus, Franklin was the ambassador to France. He used to spend a lot of time over there, and that's where a lot of his little exploits were going on. It's so weird to read about his wife, knew that he was cheating all over her. She didn't care. I think that's how popular he was. Preservation, you can connect. Preservation of the country. He was big into that kind of preservation. That's
another thing. I can't find much about preservation
and stuff like that. But it's preservation in that term of preservation, preserving the republic, preserving democracy, preserving the Constitution. And he said there was a quote that he made. He said, it's nice. It's like nice to have a democracy, just if you can hold on to it. That would be a reference to, hey, we have to preserve this because people are going to come in there and try to take it away. And it's direct it's like the stuff he got from Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine said, "Listen, you don't need the monarchy of Britain. All they're doing is screwing you guys. Y'all got a good thing going over here. So basically, first shots for the Revolutionary War. That's basically where all that stuff came from. All right, you guys want to keep going because we're 2 hours 40 minutes? Or you guys?
I don't know. I don't know.
We can do
Don't
another
make it too long for everybody.
next week. We don't have to. If everybody wants to recoup, we do a little more New Orleans, and then we can go and any other puzzle. We're open to anything.
I want to say one more thing about New Orleans.
Appreciate all the comments. Oh, and also I want to give a shout out to Linda Spalding. She's actually sending me a model of the leg eater lamp that she showed on her page.
Nice.
And, so I got something secret related. I'm going to send her back as a thank you. It will be a surprise. She told me, and I was like, "Oh man." He goes, "Yeah." So I'll probably have it by next Wednesday when we do the next podcast.
Nice. That's cool.
All right. You guys are just going to come back, Justin? You more?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I
got one more thing. I mean, I could probably save it for next week, but Edgar Allan Poe, Hop Frog. It's a pretty interesting story when it comes to the image, and how strange this little arm is. This, short-statured, creepy little masquerading guy. Look into Hop Frog by Edgar Allan Poe, and he's got an interesting story. If you are following, my theory with Charleston, it has to do with Edgar Allan Poe, and so I thought, hey, maybe he has another story from Poe, and Hop Frog is an interesting story. The characters wear these orangutan masks. So, as you can see in the picture here, you got something that looks quite like an orangutan. Some people say, Louis Armstrong, but I don't really see that. But when I looked at the artwork from this book, the Hop Frog, a lot of these white monkey masks, they're supposed to be orangutans, are pictured. And Hop Frog is like a dwarf, and he's at a masquerade, and all this stuff happens at midnight. And so I'll post some of my findings on the page for you guys to check out, and maybe it'll illuminate some things for some people. That's my last 2 cents on New Orleans.
That's cool. Where'd Eric go? Hey, I got new stuff coming out. I actually got a new episode of the five reasons why Marion Square is not a place where the cask is. Coming out soon.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Coming out
yes.
soon. The problem is people think that the places that are on the National Registry, I think that's a little too steep for Byron.
I don't know. I feel like Byron had a little bit of an axe to grind with authority. And I don't think anything was really out of his playbook when it came to where he might bury a cask. But that's just my feelings on it.
Yeah, I don't know. We had an interview with Ben Asen, and Ben Asen told us that he talked to his lawyer, and he was going to be safe as possible. He was not a risk taker.
Oh yeah, so, that might be true. I mean, it definitely alludes to a lot of national park areas. Fort Moultrie's one of them. So he's either trying to point to there as like a dead end, or maybe he didn't bury him there, but like he leaves a lot of breadcrumbs that would lead people to believe, like at the Wright Brothers Monument, that he would. So it's up to your own take on it.
Well, that's better than Marion Square. We're taking that one out.
Take it out.
and it's off. You'll be surprised.
A lot of places. That's about guaranteed. You're gonna learn. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff, and some of this stuff you learn, it might not take you to puzzle, but it's gonna help you. I don't know. I mean, I just get addicted to like looking at like what is this and what is that. I mean, Expedition Unknown I tried to post it this afternoon when the Facebook was all jacked up, but they did 2 little stories about Roanoke Island, talking about when John White came there, and
Okay, yeah.
and I was trying to share them to the page. I think one went, but the other didn't. But
So Audubon is very much like John White. So looking into my research on Audubon, he did a book that was all about the birds of America, and his illustrations were very similar to White's stuff. Check it out. You can see them online. They're really beautiful.
you know, he killed every one of the animals that he drew.
Did he? Oh God.
Yeah, because they wouldn't sit still, so he could actually paint them in detail. So how he was shooting them and then posing them and then drawing.
Oh man.
You're like, man, how much stuff he killed just to, but you know, very important. There's so many places that are named because of him, you know, and you know, he was totally seemed like he was obsessed. Like, wow, we've never seen that before. Kill it, and then draw a picture of it. So go. I mean, that was the dark side of early before photography.
Right. Yeah, I guess
You know,
that's,
it's
you
like,
either have
so
to do that or have to learn how to
I'm
paint real
gonna
fast.
have to shoot it and then look at it. You're like, you know, like, oh yeah, okay, he's got little stripes right there. I'm gonna paint that.
That makes
I remember
sense.
reading that about him, and I was like, oh brother. And they're like, I think he admitted it, or somebody said, how did you get like all these detailed? And he was like, I killed every one of them. So I could look at it and see what they really looked like. But he's got an encyclopedia of birds and animals and stuff, and you know, that was his thing, and you know, he's very famous for it, and you know, that's just the way you did it back then. I mean, plain as day. I guess he knew when, you know, I go out there and I paint all these things. You know, you could tell that people were real artists even back then with the drawings and stuff. That's like John White on Roanoke Island with all his illustrations and drawings of the Croatoan Indians. It's like nobody today would even know what any of them looked like. You know, and he painted them individually, and he painted like what their camps look like. So today we got an idea what those places looked like back in the day, because he basically just draws what he sees, and it basically looks like a photograph. He's so good at it.
I got an Audubon picture from Fort Sumter House when I worked there. They gave me one. They were taking it off the wall. Yeah, and I got it. We'll see. I'll show you guys next week.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
It's
we're at 2:50, so we're gonna get off here. Yeah, Marcy didn't show up again. She's not feeling too well. Hope you feel better, Marcy. I told her I was going to mention her on the podcast. She gets annoyed by that. And yeah, hopefully I get that thing from Linda Spalding. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, we're gonna have to beat Christopher to get some of those. He's making a whole series of stuff from the secret.
He's really good at that. He's really good at that. He's made a couple casts already.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, on that on the 3D printer.
I'll even buy one if he's selling them.
Hey,
I think that would be pretty cool to have, and buy some to just give away as gifts. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Chris left. Appreciate Justin being here, and of course Douglas. Douglas, you on Tier 5?
Hey, check out DCCR. You'll see it on the page. I'm gonna post some stuff, and check out the new Marion Square. Doesn't have a cask, and I'll tell you why.
All right. Hey, appreciate everybody watching. You could still comment. We're on Facebook as well, and appreciate you watching. Everybody have a good night.
Yeah, see y'all next week. Thanks, Eric.
Have a good night. Later. Thank you.